Chapter 312. The shock of Hu Shaojian appreciation flickered in Gu En's eyes. He hadn't expected Lu Lingjun to have such a keen self-awareness. Lu Lingjun, seeing Gu En's expression, felt rather helpless. Was this guy always so calm? She glared at Guan and said unenthusiastically, "Don't you long for it after hearing all that?" Guan replied, "Of course I yearn for it, but over the years I've heard too many tales of immortals. At best, I take them as entertainment. Could a great man like myself even dream of such things?" Lu Lingjun felt his words were somewhat odd, but she was too lazy to argue and continued to talk about her observations from Mortal World Peak. Although Guan had been there at the time, hearing it from Lu Lingjun's perspective offered a different view of the scene. The two chatted for over an ancient hour, and Lu Lingjun expressed her desire to stay temporarily in the Third Medicine Valley, to which Guan agreed. Guan stretched in a languid manner as he looked out the window. Tomorrow he could go to Dingtian Peak to pick medicinal herbs. He had ordered Zhu Xinglan to establish a medicine garden, and the first batch of medicinal herbs was already ripe. Regarding the medicine garden on Dingtian Peak, Guan had no intention of prohibiting other disciples from picking the herbs so as not to arouse suspicion. After all, Mortal World Peak was now a first-class sect with close ties to the Holy Court, and he had to be careful. And after all, Dingtian Peak was vast. Even with disciples helping, he could collect many herbs himself. Thinking of this, a look of anticipation appeared in Gu En's eyes. The following afternoon, on Dingtian Peak, Guan walked up the mountain path to the summit, followed by Zhu Xinglan, who displayed great respect as the peak's foremost disciple. He now knew that Guan was a great power who surpassed the carefree primordial immortal. Such a major figure was critical to cling to, and so he was eager to assist in any way possible. "I need a wandering immortal disciple to take charge of an island for me," Guan said casually. "Ask around for me. I won't treat him unfairly." Today had brought him over 300,000 years of lifespan, a decent haul. Zhu Xinglan immediately responded, "Master, if you wish to leave today, I will arrange it now." "Go ahead." With Gu En's consent, Zhu Xinglan vanished on the spot. Guan walked to the courtyard and sat on a bench, looking up. Ever since his last breakthrough, cosmic wars had erupted from time to time outside, with increasing numbers of heaven and earth flying immortals coming and going. Guan also caught sight of the visage of a heavenly demon. The heavenly demons appeared no different from living beings, and included many of the human race. The most distinct feature of the heavenly demons was their demonic qi, which was different from that of the demon cultivators and demons within the great heavenly spirit land. It was more sinister and instinctively repelling. At the periphery of the silent destruction domain, two heaven and earth flying immortals were engaged in combat, fighting over a treasure. Carefree primordial immortals were observing in the shadows. Half an incense stick of time later, Zhu Xinglan returned, bringing someone with him. Sun Hanfeng, Wandering Immortal Realm, 4th Layer 89034/14000/280000. Guan sized up Sun Hanfeng, who wore a black robe with a slightly sinister face, unkempt hair, and an aura that gave off an impression of great scheming. Feeling Gu En's gaze, Sun Hanfeng lowered his head, not daring to make eye contact. He was nervous because he'd heard how powerful and domineering this new master was, but he didn't want to miss such an opportunity. "Disciple Sun Hanfeng greets master," Sun Hanfeng said respectfully with a bow. Zhu Xinglan followed with an introduction of his background. Sun Hanfeng had been born on Mortal World Peak and had a very good relationship with Zhu Xinglan. "Let's be off then." Guan stood up and, with a sweep of his sleeve, whisked Sun Hanfeng away. Zhu Xinglan was momentarily stunned, admiring how impressive the master's divine skills were. Many privately discussed just how powerful the master of Dingtian Peak really was. Zhu Xinglan received an important piece of information. Sect leader Yongyan Daojun believed that the master of Dingtian Peak possessed a higher cultivation level than he did. Such an assessment left him with boundless imagination. Elsewhere, Guan arrived at Immortal Seeking Island with Sun Hanfeng in tow. As they alighted, Sun Hanfeng stumbled, nearly falling, but Guan caught his arm in time. "Are you all right?" Guan asked. Sun Hanfeng, his face flushed with embarrassment, quickly replied, "I'm fine, master. Sorry for the laugh." Guwen nodded and began walking towards the buildings ahead, with Sun Hanfeng hastily following. Guwen started to brief him on Immortal Seeking Island. After understanding the strength of the island, Sun Hanfeng breathed a sigh of relief. A place where a wandering immortal alone could be a deterrent? What pressure could there possibly be? You and the island both share the Sun surname. That's quite a coincidence, Guwen joked, with Sun Hanfeng offering only an embarrassed smile and not the least bit of dissatisfaction. Soon, Hu Shaojian and several elders of the Sea Protection Mansion were introduced, and Guwen had Sun Hanfeng introduce himself. From Mortal World Peak, I am Sun Hanfeng. I look forward to working with all of you and hope for your fullest support, Sun Hanfeng said, and then exhibited the aura of a wandering immortal, which caused everyone in the hall to breathe rapidly. Having spent years doubting whether Gu An's claims were true, they were all shocked to finally witness a wandering immortal. Hu Shaojian was especially excited, looking at Guwen with eyes full of admiration. That's settled then. From now on, Sun Hanfeng is in charge of Immortal Seeking Island. You all talk. With those words, Guwen left. Everyone turned their attention to Sun Hanfeng, all quite nervous since he didn't seem easy to approach. After Guwen left, Sun Hanfeng sat down with an assertive posture, no longer as restrained as before. May I ask, Elder, does the island master also hail from Mortal World Peak? One of the loose immortals asked cautiously. The reputation of Mortal World Peak was significant, and even if they were unfamiliar with it, they had heard of it. Naturally, Sun Hanfeng said. Everyone smiled, now believing Sun Hanfeng had a favorable relationship with the island master, or at least that he was not an outsider. The island master is my master. You can rest assured. What's most important is that we all work together to run Immortal Seeking Island well. We cannot disappoint him. Moreover, I can tell you, his cultivation level is exceedingly high, stronger than anything you have heard of. Serving him is the greatest fortune of your lives. Sun Hanfeng's words widened everyone's eyes. Hu Shaojian was bewildered. The elder was of such a grand origin? Was he not a loose immortal? Wait, loose immortal was what he had claimed himself. Hu Shaojian felt overwhelmed by immense joy, his mind buzzing, failing to pay attention to the ensuing discussions from the elders. Sun Hanfeng also noticed his distraction but did not mind, as Guwen had instructed to take good care of the lad. Seasons changed and another year passed. After the new spring, Guwen visited the branch of the Supreme Sect. It was his first time at the branch, which he reached through the teleportation array in the main city of Sect. The Supreme Sect grew stronger every year, and its ties with the branch became tighter. Guwen observed the branch's city, feeling the spiritual energy there, which was almost on par with the main city of Sect. No wonder so many disciples wished to come here. Not only was the spiritual energy abundant here, but disciples could also go out to train at any time, hunting demons and searching for heavenly and earthly treasures. The Taitsong dynasty had yet to claim the whole continent, and the same was true for the Immortal Cultivation sects, as they had not yet traversed every mountain and river on the continent. Guwen didn't rush to find Yilan and began to wander around. As he wandered, he came across an acquaintance, a friend he had made in the Outer Gate City, with whom he exchanged pleasantries for quite some time. Moving on to the next street, he encountered a disciple from the Third Medicine Valley who had achieved foundation establishment. This was the sediment of a 227-year life. Guwen enjoyed chatting with old friends, feeling no distance had grown between them. In the next ancient hour, he encountered two more old acquaintances, indicating that the branch had become the preferred destination for many average disciples, all in search of opportunities in the demon land. Guwen was briefly contemplative but did not interfere with others' lives, unless he cared deeply for them. Like his junior sister, Yilan. By the time Guwen arrived at Yilan's residence, she appeared out of nowhere with a joyful cry, "Big brother, what brings you here?" As she spoke, she rushed over to hug Guwen. "In public, you must behave yourself." Guwen quickly raised his hand and protested. Yilan reluctantly stopped, then pulled him toward the residence, all the while giving him a rundown of the current state of the branch. Inside the residence were numerous female disciples looking after the estate, and as they saw Yi Lan with Guwen, curious eyes followed. After they walked away, Guwen could hear the maids start to gossip about them. Eventually, Yi Lan led Guwen into her room, then closed the door. As the two sat down to chat, Yi Lan finished sharing her experiences and began to inquire about how Guwen had spent his years. Guwen recounted his life, and although it was mundane, Yi Lan's face remained lit with a smile. Who would have thought, they thought back then, that 200 years later, they would be able to sit together once more. Gradually, Yi Lan's mind wandered as she fell into a strange state. She experienced this because Guwen was guiding her toward enlightenment. Guwen's divine thought covered the room, helping Yi Lan perceive the heaven and earth rules, a method beyond the imagination of mortal spirits. Even facing Guwen herself, Yi Lan didn't notice anything amiss. It was as though Yi Lan had entered a dream state, her eyes distant and unfocused. Guwen stood up, carried her to the bed, and guided her into meditation. Then he retreated to the table, sitting down to watch her practice. And so he watched Yi Lan meditate, his heart full of expectation. If he could help Yi Lan extend her maximum lifespan, he would arrange for her to train at Mortal World Peak. If not, sending Yi Lan with her few centuries of life to Mortal World Peak would only add to her troubles. Once one's horizons expand, it's easy to develop more expectations, leading to anxiety and pressure. Even divine skills from a true immortal cannot grant eternal life. There seems to be a force in the shadows resisting life's expansion. What that could be, Guwen was also curious to know. Time flew swiftly by. Guwen suddenly felt a bit bored and whimsically considered another option. Why not open another round of reincarnation evolution? This time, he would not select the dark great heaven and earth. He was curious to see how long he could survive. Perhaps if he lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years and mastered formidable divine skills, it might increase his chances of surviving the next tribulation crossing. Moreover, the memories passed down from reincarnation evolution could benefit his Taoist heart cultivation. Guwen felt reaching a certain level might require reincarnation cultivation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have unlocked this feature. Let's give it a shot then. Just one shot, no greediness. After all, it would cost 10 million years of lifespan, and even if he wanted to play more, it was not possible. Guwen looked at Yi Lan, thinking to himself, "Little sister, plea." Chapter 313, Battle Court, Emperor of Heavenly Dragon. You spent 10 million years of lifespan to initiate a reincarnation evolution. Beginning to connect with the Tao rules. Searching for a reincarnation destination. You have the following destinations to choose from. Select one. 1. Da Hong Realm. 2. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. There's a dark great heaven and earth again? Guwen looked at the prompt before his eyes, immediately feeling aggravated. Black Profound Emperor, you wait for me, our blood feud from 2 lifetimes cannot be resolved. Guwen hummed in his heart and then chose Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. He always felt that Great Heaven and Earth seemed more advanced, something like a realm, similar to where Lu Lingjun and Blood Prison Great Saint came from, the lower realm. As Guwen was thinking, prompts began to appear in front of him. You've chosen to reincarnate into the Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. Due to the strength of the Tao rules in this realm, you temporarily can't initiate the life-stealing ability, nor can you activate phased features. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you were born into the dragon family of the Divine Continent, and your parents bestowed upon you the name Longzhan. At the age of 3, you awakened the true bloodline of the dragon family and, with the help of your clan, you tempered the dragon blood true body. At the age of 8, your family arranged for an immortal master for you, and you officially stepped onto the path of immortal cultivation. At the age of 9, your father took you to court to meet the Emperor of Divine Dynasty, who wished to betroth the 7th princess to you. Your father thought to let you decide. Do you accept? The prompt stopped there. Guwen had just been wondering how he had turned into a dragon. He preferred being a human. The appearance of Divine Dynasty signified that dragon was only a surname. Guwen hesitated for a moment and decided to accept, wanting to tread carefully in this life. You accepted the arrangement of the Emperor of Divine Dynasty, and you shall marry the 7th princess, Han Jiaoer, when you turn 16. The Emperor of Divine Dynasty was overjoyed, generously rewarding you and making a decree to announce this to the world. At the age of 13, while accompanied by your clan for training outside, you tore apart a 4th Order demon king with your bare hands, shocking your clan. At the age of 16, you and Han Jiaoer got married in a ceremony, officially becoming the prince consort of the Divine Dynasty. The Emperor of Divine Dynasty conferred upon you the title of Mighty Holy Duke, granting you the Divine Dynasty's chief fortune. You became famous throughout the world, entering the ranks of the top-tier talents. At the age of 18, you decided to venture into the world to grow stronger. You left with Han Jiaoer's reluctant farewell, and in the same year, she gave birth to your son, named Long Exing. At the age of 20, you reached the edge of the Divine Continent and saw an evil dragon ravaging the city. You stepped in, subdued it, and unexpectedly discovered you could absorb dragon blood, making your chi blood even stronger. At the age of 21, you encountered an old Taoist who wanted to read your fate. Do you accept? It stopped again, suggesting the old Taoist was no ordinary person. Guan hesitated for a moment and chose to accept. You agreed to let the old Taoist read your fate. He pinched your muscles and bones and began to calculate. He was soon shocked, proclaiming you possess an innate divine emperor fate, destined to dominate all creatures of heaven and earth, becoming the Lord of great heaven and earth. Immediately afterward, the old Taoist exploded into a burst of blood, covering you. At 25, you accidentally entered the grotto heaven of an ancient great cultivator and learned the ancient strange skill, Divine Desolation Technique. Gu N's lips twitched when he saw the part about the old Taoist's explosive demise. After that, he picked the more cautious options whenever possible. Year after year passed. Gu N was on tenterhooks, fearing an early death. When he made it past 200 years, he smiled, finally setting a new record. However, without the life-stealing ability, Long Zhan's growth was surely not as fast as Chu Lu, Xiao Shengtian, and without a displayed realm in the prompts. Take it slow. Gu N then became even more earnest, determined to strive to survive this life. As time ticked by, Yi Lan was meditating on the bed while Gu N sat at the desk, the room engulfed in silence. Birdsong occasionally rang out from outside the window, adding a serene atmosphere of passing years. After an ancient hour, Gu N let out a sigh, his expression grave, mired in struggle. At the age of 187,632, you met with the dragon family ancestor, who said he could fully awaken your bloodline, allowing it to fuse with your chi fortune and create an unprecedented physique. Do you accept his help? Gu N had achieved the status of war god of the divine continent and was now venturing through the cosmos when he encountered the ancestor. He always felt the ancestor was up to no good. He did not want to die after coming this far. If the ancestor was benevolent, he wouldn't make things difficult for a descendant who refused him. If malevolent, not trusting him might lead to disaster, but trusting him could lead to plummeting into the abyss. Do not accept. You refused the help of the dragon family ancestor. The ancestor was enraged and attacked you, intending to suppress you. After a great battle, you escaped with severe injuries. At the age of 187,633, you met with Fairy Ziyuan, who fortunately saved you. Your injuries were healed thanks to her. Next came adventure. Fairy Ziyuan began to follow him on adventures, making him less lonely. As for his wife, Han Jiaoer, he had gone to bid her farewell when he was 100,000 years old. They had been parted by yin and yang. It was because of this that he left his descendants behind and ventured alone into the cosmos. Gu N became more relaxed in his subsequent choices, as Long Zhan grew stronger and always managed to escape from death. Half an ancient hour later, at the age of 350,896, you unified a small universe, established the battle court, and married Fairy Ziyuan. You self-proclaimed as the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon and crowned Fairy Ziyuan as the Heavenly Empress. Quite impressive. Gu N suddenly felt a sense of achievement, as if unlocking an epic achievement in a game. He could persevere further. Guwen rubbed his hands together and continued to read on. One 10,000-year span followed another. After tens of thousands of years, at the age of 360,000, you broke through your own shackles, achieving the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm, shocking the cosmos. You regained your life grid. Do you activate the life-stealing ability? Here it comes. It's here. Guwen chose to seize without hesitation. You activated the life-stealing ability. You sacrificed a universe of living beings, resulting in a massive surge in lifespan. Sacrificed? Guwen's face turned pale. How could he be so reckless? At the age of 360,001, just as you transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path and became one with the immortals and gods, a terrifying hand reached across the river of time and snuffed you out. You were executed by the Annihilation God Emperor. Reincarnation ends. What the hell? It ended so abruptly? After he activated the life-stealing ability, Guwen hadn't even made a choice. Guwen immediately vanished from the room and appeared on an island overseas, initiating the lifespan barrier. He then sat down and looked at the last few prompts, grinding his teeth. Good. Very good. Annihilation God Emperor. Another name was added to Guwen's list of grievances. Following that, a huge influx of memories flooded into his mind. It was the entire life of the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon, Long Zhan. It was only after truly receiving the memories that Guwen realized how extraordinary Long Zhan's talent was, being unique from birth, inspiring great expectations from his family. The love between him and Han Jiaoer also left Guwen deeply moved. Once Long Zhan ventured into the cosmos, his life became even more extraordinary, his story deeply touching. Within the memories, Guwen also saw Fairy Ziyuan, incomparably beautiful and with a grace none in the world could match. Chapter 314. Heavenly Dragon and the Ji family. As Guwen continued to assimilate Long Zhan's memories, his hostility towards the Annihilation God Emperor also began to weaken. This Long Zhan is too arrogant. Before his wife Han Jiaoer's death, he still exercised some restraint in his actions, but since he went to outer heaven he completely unleashed himself and acted recklessly. The battle court he established was also tyrannical, rewarding those who followed him and annihilating those who opposed. The peace of heaven and earth sacrificed by Long Zhan was completely innocent and involved, and the creatures of that realm didn't even have time to react before they died. The whole world turned to dust in an instant. Before, Guwen felt that Xianxia was already arrogant enough, but compared to Long Zhan, he was nothing. If Guwen had been in the great heavenly spirit land and also possessed the ability to slay Long Zhan, he would definitely have made a move. After Guwen finished integrating the memories, it was as if he had lived through Long Zhan's life himself, becoming the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon, yet when he looked back, he was filled with regret and remorse. Before Long Zhan transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path, Fairy Ziyuan had advised him not to pursue enlightenment at the expense of harming other beings. Long Zhan didn't listen, and the two even broke ties over this. After the inheritance of memories ended, Guwen was still immersed in them. He was Guwen but also Long Zhan. This feeling left Guwen with an indescribable sense. Perhaps this is what it felt like to remember a past life in one's current life. Clearly the same person, but with different personalities. After inheriting the memories of Long Zhan's life, Guwen also gained a lot, including insights into the Taoist heart and the ability to inherit Long Zhan's most powerful divine skills. Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect. This divine skill could condense the ultimate Dharma aspect of one's Taoist sorcery, and could even condense the Dharma aspect of a past life to fight alongside oneself. After creating this divine skill, Long Zhan had intended to cultivate through reincarnation evolution to create Dharma aspects for tens of thousands of generations, but an accident unlocked the life-stealing ability, and he no longer researched this divine skill, instead continually using lifespan evolution to enhance his divine skill. Guwen slowly opened his eyes and then disappeared inside the island retreat, returning to Yi Lan's estate. At this moment, Yi Lan was still in a state of path enlightenment. Guwen sat down and continued to reflect on Long Zhan's life. The Long Zhan who had transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path was truly powerful, The feeling of controlling life and casually manipulating rules fascinated Guan even now. At the same time, he was also filled with dread at the power of the Annihilation God Emperor. He had truly been crushed to death by the Annihilation God Emperor with a single hand. He hadn't even seen the true form of the Annihilation God Emperor. It was a means that transcended time and space and was superior to the cosmic rules. After understanding Long Zhan's life, Guan no longer harbored intense hostility towards the Annihilation God Emperor. Unlike Chu Lu and Xiao Xingtian, Long Zhan had brought death upon himself. Guan felt somewhat confused. If reincarnation evolution could be realized, he might also create a peerless evil being. Fundamentally, he did not want to, but he couldn't control the personality in the cycle of reincarnation. Yet reincarnation evolution had many benefits, allowing him to remember countless spells and divine skills, adding to his combat experience, and even enhancing his understanding of reincarnation, making it very difficult for him to give up. After much thought, Guan felt he was trapping himself in his own web of thoughts. Why overthink so much? The path to becoming stronger couldn't possibly be achieved without harming the innocent. Many moral judgments are based on perspective, just like in war. Are not the civilians of the enemy's country innocent? At most, the next time he encounters a situation like Long Zhan's, he could choose not to activate the life-stealing ability and rely on his own efforts to cultivate. In fact, even without the life-stealing ability, Long Zhan's talent was very strong. Guan began to review the cultivation technique of the Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma aspect. He felt this Dharma aspect seemed familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. He soon remembered. The Ji family's Heavenly Dragon demon-suppressing form had some similarities. He planned to ask Ji Xiaoyu about it later. Ji Xiaoyu had already inherited divine skills when she returned to the Ji family and might be able to perform the Heavenly Dragon demon-suppressing form. The sun set and the moon rose. A night passed. Yi Lan gradually woke up and felt as if she had had a dream, one she couldn't remember clearly after waking up. When she opened her eyes, she felt the entire world had changed. Her gaze fell on the table and she saw Guan reading a book. Guan turned his head to look at her and smiled, asking, "Awake?" Yi Lan, Divinity Transformation Realm Level 5222/600/800. Her lifespan limit had increased by 200 years. Guan let out a sigh of relief, his face showing a smile. As long as there were results. But the effect was somewhat weak. He was, after all, a divine thought true immortal. Guan carefully examined Yi Lan and noticed a subtle breath dissipating from her body, like the heaven and earth rules, but even more difficult to detect. "How did I fall asleep?" Yi Lan asked, puzzled. Guan rolled his eyes and said, "You're asking me? It's not like I drugged you, is it? I'm not even blaming you. I came all this way, and while we were talking, you fell asleep, leaving me hanging." Yi Lan showed an embarrassed expression and couldn't help asking, "Then why didn't you wake me up?" "You were cultivating even in your sleep. It was clearly not ordinary sleep, so how could I dare to interrupt you?" Guan replied, standing up. "I'm leaving. I'll come to see you again next time." "Sister, why not stay a couple more days?" "No can do. Medicine Valley can't do without me." "Really? How come I heard you're always hands-off as a manager?" "How could that be?" The two bickered for a while, but in the end, Guan firmly decided to leave. Yi Lan walked him to the estate's front door. Guan suddenly stopped in his tracks, turned to look at her, and asked, "In your heart, which is more important, good and evil or affection?" He asked this because he was reminded of the scene where Long Zhan and Fairy Ziyuan broke ties. Although Long Zhan brought it upon himself, the end result of his loneliness still left him sighing. Long Zhan might have been overbearing, but towards the people by his side he was quite good. He just didn't tolerate any dissent from them. Yi Lan was taken aback for a moment, then smiled gracefully and said, "If you were evil, I myself would not be evil, but I would always follow you as long as you don't abandon me." Guan showed a smile and said, "Don't overthink it. I was just thinking about the plot in a book. I don't have the courage to do evil." With that, he waved his hand and walked away. Yi Lan watched his retreating figure, thoughtful. As summer approached, the weather cooled. In the woods, Gu and watched Ji Xiaoyu step onto the clearing with anticipation in his eyes. Ji Xiaoyu's forehead was etched with a red Dao pattern that burst into light. Her whole aura suddenly changed. She raised her right hand, and the spiritual power inside her activated in a sophisticated manner, quickly coalescing behind her into a golden wheel that resembled a round glowing door with intricate and profound patterns. As the golden wheel opened, golden dragons surged out from the intense light. Her heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form differed from her past life, but Guwen saw through it at a glance. The essence of the heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form shared the same origin as the heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma aspect but was weaker and far less sophisticated than the latter. This discovery made Guwen's heart tremble. The heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma aspect was created by Longzhan himself. Could the Ji family be related to Longzhan? In Longzhan's memories, he only passed the heavenly dragon reincarnation dharma aspect onto his son Long Xen, which implies that Long Xen passed it down. From the life experiences of Chu Lu and Xiao Xingtian, their timelines might differ from Gu's. Could it be that reincarnation evolution might project into the past? Ji Xiaoyu dismissed the heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form, then approached Guwen and asked, "How was it?" Although she wasn't sure why Guwen wanted to see the heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form, it was renowned throughout the world, and showing it to outsiders did not violate clan rules. Truly formidable, it fills me with awe. The person who created this divine skill must truly be a godly being. Does the Ji family have a record of who created it? Guwen exclaimed. Ji Xiaoyu thought for a moment and said, "This divine skill has an ancient origin, created by an ancestor. Who exactly created it I am unsure, but if you care, I can look into it when I return." Guwen nodded. "I'm indeed curious. I want to write a book, inspired by the Ji family's history." Upon hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu smiled and said, "The vice sect leader is looking forward to you writing about the Ji family." The two continued their conversation, with Ji Xiaoyu planning to introduce other divine skills, but Guwen showed no interest, so she gave up. Both of them headed towards Medicine Valley. The heavenly dragon demon-suppressing form was created by the Reincarnation Path Emperor, or perhaps, I have seen her perform it. A voice came from the forest ahead, and stealing the 5 elements appeared. Ji Xiaoyu frowned, her expression full of displeasure. Guwen had already noticed stealing the 5 elements eavesdropping, and he too was speculating whether it was related to the Reincarnation Path Emperor, so he didn't mind stealing the 5 elements' presence. Currently, only the Reincarnation Path Emperor in the Ji family could travel to outer heaven. Stealing the 5 elements, seeing the look in Ji Xiaoyu's eyes, laughed and said, "She once said that at the other end of the universe, there exists a more vast expanse of heaven and earth that I can't even fathom." After hearing this, Guwen suddenly suspected that the dragon race or the battle court might still exist. Of course, it was just a guess. Although he integrated Longzhan's memories and became Longzhan, he had no intention of seeking out the dragon race or the battle court. Staying honestly in the great heavenly spirit land was the righteous path. Even the strong could be crushed by others. "Why do you always eavesdrop on our conversation?" Ji Xiaoyu said discontentedly, the Dao patterns on her forehead emitting strange radiance once again. Stealing the 5 elements raised his hand. "I mean no harm. Am I not helping you clear up your doubts? If you could transform into the Reincarnation Path Emperor, I would only be pleased." With that he vanished on the spot. Guwen consoled, "Don't worry about him, watch how I'll crush him on the chessboard in the future." Ji Xiaoyu retracted her Dao patterns and nodded slightly. For Guwen, this was just a minor interlude, understanding was enough. He didn't need to investigate thoroughly. Longzhan's karma was too significant. He didn't want to get involved. But this incident stirred his imagination. If reincarnation evolution projected into the past, how strong would the Black Profound Emperor be now? What about that Annihilation God Emperor and Great Heavenly Spirit Land? Would they also be in his field of view? Guwen felt he needed to be even more cautious in the future and must not let others know he could steal lifespan. A flock of birds flew out from the forest, heading toward the distance, their figures obscured by the sunlight. 5 years quickly passed. This year, news spread throughout the world, causing a sensation. the establishment of the Broken Sea domain. Created by the Holy Court, covering the region that the Great Cold Demon sect previously sought to slaughter in the mortal world, with the sea-breaking rift at the center. The news spread rapidly, penetrating the continent, with the Emperor Li Xiandao following with an edict to the world, declaring the continent be renamed Taizong Continent. Chapter 315, Destined Fate Broken Sea Domain. Inside Enzin's house, Guwen sat at the table, lost in thought. Why hadn't they set up the domain before? If it was for the sake of guarding against the Great Cold Demon sect, it was hardly necessary. After all, the Great Cold Demon sect was no different from being disbanded. Guwen felt that the other party had come specifically for him, especially since the Great Cold Demon sect had a holy king standing behind them. He could see a large number of cultivators building a floating island in the sky at the edge of the sea-breaking rift. He watched for a while before withdrawing his gaze and looking back at an Xian. At the moment, an Xian was immersed in path enlightenment, and with Guwen's help, she had also entered that state and had been there for several ancient hours. Guwen kept checking Enzin's lifespan limit. Finally, Enzin's lifespan limit began to grow, albeit weakly, but it was indeed increasing. Guwen stared intently at an Xian, probing everything within her body. Soon, he caught a glimpse of that mysterious force more complicated than causality, just like the situation with Yilan before. As the lifespan limit increased, this mysterious force began to separate from her body. It seemed likely that all beings were bound by this force, and increasing the lifespan limit would weaken it. Could this be fate? Guwen fell into contemplation. Even divine monarchs with powerful divine thoughts could not see through the force that manipulated the lives of all beings. Regardless, having started to be able to catch it was a good beginning. Afterward, Guwen got up and left. After all, this was the third Medicine Valley, and it wasn't appropriate for a man and a woman to be alone in the same room, especially with their mentor-disciple relationship. Moreover, in Medicine Valley, with him around, no one could disturb Enzin's path enlightenment. The night passed. The next morning, an Xian walked out of her house and followed the disciples in their exercises. She felt somewhat dazed, looking around her. She could feel that the world had changed. From afar, Guwen saw her lifespan limit had grown to 300 years. She hadn't yet released her cultivation level suppression, and the primordial reincarnation skill could still increase her lifespan limit. Guwen didn't greet an Xian, pretending to know nothing about it. In the following days, the establishment of the Broken Sea domain and the renaming of the continent became hot topics among all. As summer approached, Guwen was teaching Yang Jian cultivation in the woods, aware of Lu Xini watching in secret, but unconcerned. As long as Lu Xini didn't become hostile to him. Lu Xini, sitting above the clouds, looked down thoughtfully. This person's cultivation isn't very impressive, but he's very talented at teaching disciples. Could it be that he really encountered an immortal in a dream? Lu Xini wondered curiously. He had joined the Supreme Sect and even entered the Hall of Elders, aware of Guwen's identity as an author. Beyond that, he could only confirm Guwen was indeed only over 200 years old, as many could attest, so he didn't feel wary of Guwen. Even if Guwen was the reincarnation of a great power, he posed no threat to a divinity of the 9 layers of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Because of this, Lu Xianya's curiosity about Guwen was even greater than his expectations for Yang Jian. "That's enough for today," Guwen said. Hearing this, Yang Jian stopped his movements and saluted Guwen with a fist. Today, Guwen imparted a great deal of combat experience. With memories of Long Zhan's battles, Guwen's combat experience had surpassed most in the world. A single afternoon had benefited Yang Jian immensely. On the way back to the valley, Yang Jian was very excited. He had not expected his master's close combat abilities to be so extraordinary. "A genius has returned today. I'll take you to see him later," Guwen mentioned casually, noting Lu Xini, seeing their training conclude, left, not to leave the Supreme Sect, but to play chess. "A genius? That Wu Ju, Uncle Master?" Yang Jian asked curiously. Wu Ju had visited Guwen years before, and Yang Jian had only seen him from afar, learning afterward of Wu Ju's famed reputation. "Not him, you'll know later," Guwen said mysteriously, piquing Yang Jian's curiosity further. When the master and disciple returned to Medicine Valley, they heard other disciples discussing. And how is here? Really? True, Xianxia, our sister apprentice, is actually Hao's sister. They both have the same last name. Could they be blood siblings? No, they're just from the same village and once had the same master, who later renamed them. My goodness! And Hao is so handsome, almost like an immortal. Huh, always the romantic, aren't you? The Supreme Sect has seen so many geniuses over the years, yet those great figures still think Hao is the greatest genius the Supreme Sect has ever had. Yang Jian's expression changed slightly, his fists clenched unconsciously. It was Hao. He glanced at Guwen covertly, noticing no reaction, and so he suppressed the excitement in his heart. His current cultivation had already reached the 9th layer of the divinity transformation realm, a result of focusing on his physical cultivation. He wanted to be acknowledged as the #1 genius too. He had also suspected that Hao was that mysterious senior disciple. Today, he hoped to unravel the mystery. Guwen led him to Nzin's courtyard. Guwen noticed stealing the 5 elements and Lu Xinyi observing Hao with their divine senses. And Hao, with the vast gulf in their realms, was unaware. The 9-fingered divine lord didn't come today, and Xianxia was immersed in studying the journey to the west under a tree, much like Sui Jian in his absorption. Guwen looked at the imposing Hao and was very pleased. The current Hao had already reached the 8th layer of the unification realm, still cultivating at an impressive speed. Yang Jian was a major realm behind him, not yet comparable, but once they entered the Immortal Path realm, the gap would be trivial. When master and disciple arrived outside Nzin's courtyard, she turned around, smiling, and then pulled Hao out of the house. Hao stood tall, head crowned with an imposing golden dragon crown, dressed in a waist-bound white robe with sleeves long like flowing clouds. His handsome face bore sharp, proud brows, and just standing there, he possessed a lofty spirit that commanded the world, without losing the transcendent demeanor of a cultivator. Compared to him, Yang Jian seemed ordinary. Usually, Yang Jian stood out among his fellow disciples, but next to Hao, he was easily overlooked. Sister, over the years, Master has been extremely kind to me. I haven't suffered at all, Xian said happily. Hao stood in front of Guwen and suddenly didn't know how to address him. Brother Hao, have you forgotten me? Guwen asked with a smile, his demeanor warm as the spring breeze, instantly easing Hao's awkwardness. How could I forget? We've been through life and death together. Thank you for taking care of my sister over the years, which has eased many of my worries. Hao smiled, then took out a brocade box to present to Guwen. Guwen quickly declined, but under the joint persuasion of Xian and Hao, he could only reluctantly accept it. The box contained 8th-rank medicinal herbs. The young man was thoughtful. Hao's gaze inevitably landed on Yang Jian, who had been unabashedly staring at him since earlier. How could he not have noticed? Intuition told him Yang Jian was not simple. He felt like he was facing impermanence Tian. Of course, while Yang Jian was far from as strong, Hao suspected he might also possess an ancient treasure body. Who is this? Hao asked proactively. My disciple, Yang Jian, Guwen replied with a smile, finding the rivalry between the two disciples interesting. Yang Jian? True Lord Erlang? Hao laughed. Yang Jian, serious, said, I want to spar with you. He could see now that Hao was definitely not the mysterious senior disciple, which diminished his awe for Hao somewhat. In his mind, only that senior brother could surpass him, as the master said his talent was stronger at the moment. Hao's smile vanished as he began to size up Yang Jian. Xian wanted to interject but hesitated, looking at Guwen to find him smiling without interruption. Hao spoke, You're not strong enough, but I acknowledge your talent and courage. How about we agree to settle it at the Heavenless tournament in the future? What do you think? Hearing this, Yang Jian felt it was reasonable. A duel like this should be witnessed by the world, so he nodded in agreement. Don't forget to thank him. He's been cultivating for many more years than you. He could easily pick on you, but instead, he's willing to give you time to grow, Guwen said. At those words, Yang Jian immediately bowed to express his gratitude. And Hao looked at Guwen in astonishment. That such a talent was so obedient? Intuition told him that not even among the Star Sea congregations could one find such a genius. You two keep talking, I won't disturb you any longer. Guwen dropped these words and left with Yang Jian. And Hao didn't ponder any further and took an Xen back into the house. Not far away, the blood prison great saint watched and Hao and inwardly marveled. This youth shouldn't be underestimated. He seemed even stronger than Yang Jian. Guwen returned alone to his loft and opened the brocade box, examining the medicinal herbs gifted by Hao. Not long after, Ji Xiaoyu came to find him. That Hao is rather remarkable. I've seen such a presence in my dreams, always dominating an entire realm, Ji Xiaoyu remarked. You're not bad yourself, Guwen replied with a smile. Among those he had encountered, below the state of nirvana, those with a lifespan reaching 9,999 years were few. Currently only Hao, Yang Jian, Blood Prison Great Saint, and Ji Xiaoyu. Li Lingtian was short by 1,000 years. Ji Xiaoyu had not only great talent but also a significant background. For now, Guwen felt that Hao's foundation fell short of hers. Of course, when it came to cultivation speed, Hao was unrivaled. Ji Xiaoyu sat down and asked, why is it that your Medicine Valley always attracts so many peerless geniuses and powerful cultivators? Guwen helplessly replied, you're asking me? But who am I to ask? Besides, they're not coming for me. Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. Even if not for you, you've established good karma with each one. You're not simple, like the great fortune of energy movement I've seen in my dreams, not necessarily the strongest in talent, but always breaking through and stirring the winds of change in the world. Guwen blinked and asked, what are you trying to say? Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath. I'm planning to go somewhere, a place with a great opportunity. Come with me. Hearing this, Guwen felt a headache. Many had said similar things to him. You go ahead, the supreme sect can't be without me, Guwen declined, to Ji Xiaoyu's astonishment at his resolute refusal. Chapter 316. Mysterious Heavenly Demon, you think your sword venerable Fudao? The sect can't go on without you? Ji Xiaoyu couldn't help but say, her angry glare was actually quite charming. Guwen thought as much, but said, making contributions, does it really have to be divided by cultivation levels? Guarding the sect outside is merit, as is guarding Medicine Valley. I cultivate medicinal herbs for the supreme sect with all my might. Isn't that also a laborious and meritorious deed? Ji Xiaoyu tried to calm her emotions and began to speak of the great advantage of that opportunity. Despite Ji Xiaoyu's persuasion, Guwen just wouldn't agree, which infuriated her. Another person was just as infuriated, and that was Hao. No matter how he persuaded, Xian simply refused to follow him to the Star Sea congregations. That day, Ji Xiaoyu left the Third Medicine Valley. Less than an hour after her departure, Hao also stormed off, though he was not leaving the Supreme Sect. He still needed to return to the main city of Sect to have a talk with the higher-ups. Dusk descended. Guwen and Xian stood in front of the wooden railings, their shadows elongating with the setting sun. Guwen, admiring the desolate beauty of the sunset, softly asked, don't you regret it? Xian turned her head, looked at Guwen's profile, and asked, Master, do you have any regrets? We're different. Ji Xiaoyu has the Ji family behind her, but Hao only has you. Guwen shook his head with a bitter smile. Xian looked to the horizon and said, he has more than just me, and his heart holds the entire mortal world. He's long since not the senior brother I knew. I can't be the stumbling block in his path. For some reason, Guwen suddenly felt the impulse to focus on cultivating Xian. It would be interesting to have Xian surpass Hao. Unfortunately, for now he could only contemplate it, as reversing the gap between the two was not so easy. The master and disciple began to discuss matters overseas, imagining how powerful the Star Sea congregations were and how awe-inspiring the sea-breaking rift would be. In life, one always wishes to see the whole world, to measure mountains and rivers. Above the sea of clouds, Blood Prison Great Saint carried Guwen as they flew, feeling the vibrant spiritual energy of the region, and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Master, where exactly is this place? Blood Prison Great Saint couldn't resist asking. Guwen replied, "Another sect I've joined. You must not reveal this to anyone, including Jenner." Upon hearing this, Blood Prison Great Saint's body shivered, feeling a surge of excitement rush to the top of his skull, unable to contain his exhilaration. A secret only he knew? Perfect. Didn't this mean he had surpassed Yang Jian in the heart of his master? Serves that kid right for wanting to go out and make a name for himself. Blood Prison Great Saint thought gleefully. Since meeting in Hao, Yang Jian had been practicing even harder, saying that in the future he wanted to go out and make a name even more renowned than in Hao's. That kid really didn't understand the heart of the master. The master with his unfathomable Tao level was a hermit in the bustling world, clearly disliking the high-profile life. Yang Jian was truly drifting away. Guwen could feel Blood Prison Great Saint's excitement, his bovine body trembling as if this fellow was simply overwhelmed by the rare opportunity to travel far. This place was none other than Mortal World Peak. Guwen disliked the slow pace of Blood Prison Great Saint and used his divine thought to help speed him up. After they entered the peaks of the Mortal World Peak, Blood Prison Great Saint looked around curiously, his bovine eyes wide open, as if a countryman had entered the city for the first time. And so, they arrived at Dingtian Peak. Ever since Guwen extinguished Mo Hen the Old Man, Dingtian Peak had seen a surge in popularity, with an increase in the number of disciples, and students coming and going from all directions. Blood Prison Great Saint could feel the aura of those along the way and was secretly shocked. How did it feel like any random person was stronger than he was before the seal? Guwen, leading him, went all the way to the mountain top. As soon as they landed, Zhu Xinglan appeared, bowing respectfully towards Guwen. Blood Prison Great Saint sized up Zhu Xinglan with curious eyes. "Master, a mysterious cave was discovered within Dingtian Peak, containing powerful restrictions. Would you like to take a look?" Zhu Xinglan asked. Upon hearing this, Guwen nodded and asked him to lead the way. Along the way, Zhu Xinglan briefed him on the cave at the foot of the mountain, nearly submerged under the sea surface, discovered by two disciples during a combat practice. Zhu Xinglan suspected it was related to the previous insurrection, which had been a while ago, but according to him, terrible demons had emerged at that time, nearly destroying Dingtian Peak to the ground, to the extent that the peak master had fallen. Guwen couldn't help but think of Mo Hen the Old Man. Considering Chengtian Peak was a better choice, but Mo Hen the Old Man chose Dingtian Peak. Could it be because of that cave? Blood Prison Great Saint was even more excited, not expecting to encounter something so thrilling upon arrival. They flew downward and quickly reached the entrance of the cave, where two wandering immortals stood guard. Upon seeing Guwen, they quickly stood up and saluted. Guwen nodded, then asked Blood Prison Great Saint to follow Zhu Xinglan into the cave. With Zhu Xinglan leading the way, he could not help but wonder why his master was riding a mere mortal ox. Such a fortunate ox head. Guwen had just entered the cave and felt a subtle aura. The aura of a heavenly demon? He asked. Has this been reported to the main peak? Zhu Xinglan shook his head. No, the main peak's master has been in seclusion, and Mortal World Peak has always managed its own affairs. He paused, then added, You are the peak master. As long as you do not abdicate, everything about Dingtian Peak is yours. These words made Guwen feel comfortable in his heart, and he became increasingly satisfied with Zhu Xinglan. The guy was simply the perfect Hu Shaojian, so easy to use. Bypassing the long cave tunnel, they arrived at a spacious chamber. Guwen could sense the thick space restriction here, almost like an exotic world's dimension, making the place look extremely vast. The chamber wasn't too dark, floating with countless bright lights, like fireflies, which were actually spiritual energy condensed into form. They stood on an array platform, where a stone pillar stood erect, pitch black, with a rough surface, reflecting a cold light. Guwen got off Blood Prison Great Saint's back and approached the stone pillar. With his hand on the stone pillar, a powerful force erupted, startling Zhu Xinglan into immediately deploying his mana to defend, not forgetting to protect Blood Prison Great Saint. Zhu Xinglan's eyes widened as he saw Guwen's hand actually penetrate the stone pillar, the point of contact glowing eerily as if it were the mouth of an exotic world. A gale followed from that mysterious mouth, the wind black as midnight, like countless sinister Tao patterns, sending shivers down the spine of both Zhu Xinglan and Blood Prison Great Saint. Guwen withdrew his hand, holding a soul in his grasp, a soul body of an old man, about as large as a baby. He was held by Guwen, unable to break free, his face full of fear. Dark Soul Ancestor, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm Level 31209894/1300000/1900000. Guwen looked at the other's age and raised an eyebrow. Zhu Xinglan couldn't help but caution, "Master, be careful." Guwen's right hand clenched, and the Dark Soul Ancestor disintegrated. Zhu Xinglan, seeing this, sighed in relief and asked, "Master, what realm was he at?" He could feel that the Dark Soul Ancestor was very sinister, but what realm he was from, he couldn't tell. Chapter 317 Demon Fetus. You have successfully acquired 9,670 years of lifespan from the Dark Soul Ancestor, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm, 3rd level. Looking at the prompt before him, Guwen remained indifferent. If it were not for the other party charging at him directly, he would not have bothered to kill him. The reason he did not perform the soul search was because the space within the stone pillar still concealed other heavenly demons. Guwen casually responded, "It's just a demon soul. Its realm, high or low, doesn't matter." "Doesn't matter?" Zhu Xinglan opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Guwen's divine thought locked onto the space inside the stone pillar, where, within that pitch-black space, there existed yet another aura of a heavenly demon that was even more terrifying. His divine thought captured the location of that heavenly demon. It turned out to be a demon egg. The demon egg, formed from demonic qi and about a zhang tall, emitted a faint glow, like the weak starlight in the dark universe. Guwen's divine thought penetrated the demon egg and saw a demon infant. He saw the demon infant entwined with heavy and complex karma, even making him feel uneasy, his intuition telling him that eradicating the demon infant would bring greater trouble. He withdrew his divine thought and also stopped his actions, restoring the restriction on the stone pillar. He turned and said to Zhu Xinglan, "From now on, no one must enter this place, and you must not disturb this stone pillar. There is a fearsome heavenly demon inside, difficult to handle, and it has yet to awaken." Hearing this, Zhu Xinglan immediately became nervous and muttered, "Heavenly demon." Sure enough, the previous problem has not been completely resolved. Guwen couldn't help but ask, did the previous internal upheaval on Dingtian Peak have to do with the heavenly demon? That's right, that terrible evil demon was a heavenly demon. It said that the former peak master was transformed by the heavenly demon. The sect feared that spreading the word would stir up greater turmoil, so they concealed the fact. Zhu Xinglan nodded, his face full of worry. The greater turmoil he referred to was the Holy Court, which has the deepest apprehension for heavenly demons. Guwen suddenly thought of Yu Yingying and Xianxia. Could there be other heavenly demon reincarnations in the world? He felt it was very likely. He sensed he had triggered an extraordinary side plot. He did not want to get involved, so he prepared to seal this place, especially since the demon fetus was still in slumber. As such, it's even more crucial not to speak of this, understood? Guwen cautioned. As for informing the Holy Court, he had considered it, but the matter of him casually killing a divine immortal of wondrous dharma could likely be exposed due to that, and Mortal World Peak does not trust the Holy Court either, otherwise they would not have concealed the matter of the heavenly demon. After all, he came here to plant herbs. The well-being of Mortal World Peak has nothing to do with him. Of course, when he becomes strong enough to ignore the karma of the demon fetus, he could then erase the being, giving himself greater peace of mind. Zhu Xinglan nodded, but the deep furrows in his brow did not smooth out. The Blood Prison Great Saint looked thoughtfully at the stone pillar. Afterward, they left the cave. Zhu Xinglan began to seal the entrance and Guwen rode the Blood Prison Great Saint back to the mountaintop. The Blood Prison Great Saint had many questions he wanted to ask, but he was afraid of being overheard by the Great Cultivator, so he had to swallow his words. In the following time, Guwen began picking medicinal herbs at Mortal World Peak. Zhu Xinglan had already set up a large medicine garden, which was guarded by disciples on regular days. When Guan personally came to pick herbs, the disciples were initially taken aback by the honor but later got used to it. Of course, no matter how approachable Guan seemed to be, they always remained reserved. After half a day's stay on Dingtian Peak, Guan left with several hundreds of thousands of years of lifespan. He came to pick herbs once a month, and the lifespan income from Dingtian Peak last year had already broken 1,000,000 years, surpassing his foundation on the Taizong continent. After returning to the Supreme Sect, just as the Blood Prison Great Saint was about to speak, Guan stopped him. "Remember what I said when we left? Don't ask, you will see through everything eventually." Guan's words made the Blood Prison Great Saint grow respectful. He felt that his master was instructing him. His nature was too impulsive, which is why he ended up like this, indeed needing to cultivate his Taoist heart. In Mortal World Peak, Guan was the revered Peak Master, and in the Supreme Sect, he was just an ordinary Valley Master. Watching Guan chatting and laughing with the servant disciples, the Blood Prison Great Saint was incredibly impressed. He felt the Master wasn't pretending. In the Master's heart, all sentient beings truly are equal. The distinction of strength lies in one's cultivation level, but the life of every creature is equal. The Blood Prison Great Saint increasingly felt there was much to learn from his master, such as this way of interacting with others, which surely would lead to many good connections. If someone could defy the heavens and change their fate, these tales might spread far and wide in the future. However, his realization was quickly shattered, because that detestable fat mouse came to harass him again. What made him most exasperated was that the fat mouse became even faster. How could he feel that this mouse also possessed peerless talent? This was too absurd. Guan then started to inspect the different sectors within Medicine Valley. Although the third Medicine Valley seldom had trouble, he still had to perform his duties on the surface, to prevent the disciples from slacking. Summer passed, and autumn arrived. In the early autumn season, within the Outer World Cave, Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai were attacking Guan together. The three demons constantly changed their movement techniques, their demon energy rolling like a dragon, surrounding Guan. Facing their offensive, Guan seemed quite at ease. With just a wave of his hand, he could resolve their spells. Tian Yaoer stepped on the 9 Extremes Freedom Steps and appeared behind Guan. She struck with her palm, from which fire surged, rapidly expanding into the shape of a phoenix and swallowing him whole. The next second, the fire phoenix immediately scattered, causing Tian Yaoer to be shaken and fly backward. Guan then raised his leg, and countless shadows burst forth, causing Tian Qing and Tian Bai to lose their composure, unable to defend in time. They were hit by the leg shadows one after another and were knocked flying, landing clumsily far away. The three demons struggled to get up, looking at Guan with aggrieved expressions on their faces. "If this were a real fight to the death, you would be dead by now. There aren't many people out there who will indulge you like I do," Guan commented nonchalantly while withdrawing his leg. Tian Yaoer widened her eyes and asked, "Is every creature out there as powerful as you?" "There are always people beyond you, heavens beyond heavens," Guan casually answered. He had already restrained himself enough not to injure them. "Is that so?" Tian Yaoer was skeptical. She always felt that whenever Guan mentioned fearing this and that, it was all to scare them, while he himself seemed forever calm and composed. Guan snorted, "Anyway, you still need more practice." Tian Qing and Tian Bai immediately approached, clinging to Guan's arms and sweetly agreeing with Master. This made Tian Yaoer grit her teeth with irritation. Why did it seem as though the other two had been spoiled rotten? After Guan gave a few more pieces of advice, he took his leave. Tian Yaoer immediately pounced on Tian Qing and Tian Bai, and the second battle commenced. The autumn wind swept through, blowing a leaf into the courtyard where an elderly man in rich attire was sweeping the floor. It was none other than the aged Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan held the broom with both hands and swept slowly, as if his sweeping was not just cleaning the ground, but also a gesture of refinement. A young boy ran into the yard, spotting Xiaochuan, and couldn't help but exclaim, "Grandfather, why are you sweeping again? Is sweeping that fun? It's not like we have no servants in the house." The young man wore blue clothes, had a fair face, and appeared to be around 15 or 16 years old, with his hair tied up high, exuding youthful vigor. Xiaochuan didn't stop his sweeping but replied with a kindly smile, "It's not about fun, it's a habit. Sweeping helps me reminisce about the past. When you get old like me, you too will love to look back. You're young and don't understand." The boy stepped forward, hands on his hips, discontentedly saying, "Grandpa, I heard you once practiced in the Immortal sect. Why don't you recommend us to enter the Supreme sect and cultivate? Cultivation is not forbidden to ordinary people." Over the years, cultivators have appeared in the city from time to time, and the magistrate's grandson has even gone for cultivation. "Grandpa, although our family has money, it's not enough. We must think long-term." He rambled continuously, while Xiaochuan watched him complain without getting angry. Once he finished, Xiaochuan suddenly asked, "What if you go to the Immortal sect and discover your cultivation talent to be very ordinary, inferior to anyone around you, being left behind by them continuously, what would you do?" The boy glanced with disbelief. "How could I be that bad? Your grandfather, I was just that bad. But people are different, right? If someone with exceptional talent emerged from our family, wouldn't that be a blessing for generations, and even you would benefit? Heh, your uncle once went to an Immortal cultivation sect. His talent was mediocre, and he nearly died in a conflict with cultivators. Whether someone is extraordinarily talented or not, these eyes of mine can see." Xiaochuan shook his head and said, as each descendant grew up, they would come and ask him these questions. He had also sent children to practice, but the results were always unsatisfying. Of course, he didn't send them to the Supreme sect. He didn't want to cause more trouble for his senior brother. If they couldn't succeed in other sects, how could they go to the Supreme sect? "But can you really see that clearly?" the boy asked with wide eyes, his face turning red with urgency. Just as Xiaochuan was about to respond, his eyes suddenly widened. Guwen walked into the courtyard, looking around as if searching for something. When Guwen spotted Xiaochuan, he too broke into a smile. Noticing his grandfather's expression, the boy turned his head to look and then frowned, sizing up Guwen and asking, "Who are you? I haven't seen you before?" "Fweck." Xiaochuan smacked the back of his head, not too harshly, and scolded with a smile, "Do you remember everyone in the house, apart from the maids? Beat it." The boy pouted but had to leave, sizing up Guwen as he went. "Chuanyue, Qi Cultivation Realm, First Level 15/80/180, Guwen gestured playfully at Chuanyue, causing Chuanyue to glare at him. Once the boy left, Xiaochuan stepped forward and hugged Guwen excitedly. "Senior brother, how come you're here?" Xiaochuan was ecstatic. Guwen was slightly annoyed. "When your grandson was here, why didn't you call me senior brother?" Xiaochuan grinned. "That was to prevent him from clinging to you once he realized your identity. You are a high cultivator of the Supreme sect, at least in his eyes." Looking at the signs of aging on Xiaochuan's face, Guwen felt a sense of nostalgia. Why stop the children from seeking the immortal path? "I'm not stopping them, they just want to use my connections to get in. If they truly possess the talent, they will rise even without my intervention." Xiaochuan shook his head. His words seemed to make sense to Guwen. Decades had passed, and Xiaochuan had become more mature, with the sediment of years evident on him, no longer the silent youth who once followed Guwen. Chapter 318. Peering into Life. The so-called Will of Heaven. Guwen and Xiaochuan sat in the courtyard chatting with great enthusiasm about the past. When they spoke of those olden times, they both harbored many sighs, and when it came to those long-departed friends, they would fall into brief silences. "I sent you out of the valley, these many decades. Have you been satisfied with your life?" Guwen asked. Xiaochuan smiled and said, "Of course, I'm satisfied. At least I have no regrets in life. I've even glimpsed the immortal path. How can a mortal who achieves my level not be content? Those who aren't satisfied are probably oppressed their whole life. With that state of mind, no matter how high their cultivation level is, they'll never be content." Guwen couldn't help but raise his teacup to toast him. Such openness was truly rare. Guwen had harbored resentments towards Xiaochuan before for not cultivating diligently. Now he thought about it. Even if Xiaochuan didn't achieve much in immortal cultivation, he has at least lived a life more joyous than worrisome. However, the thought that Xiao Chuan wouldn't live for many more years made Guan somewhat reluctant to part. He had experienced this feeling many times during the reincarnation evolution, especially in the life of Long Zhan. Long Zhan's drastic change in temperament was because he had lived through too many such events, particularly the death of his beloved wife, which deeply traumatized him. The powerful Long Zhan realized that even with his strength, he would have regrets, which was why he ventured alone into the universe. Xiao Chuan seemed to understand Gu An's mood and said to comfort him, "Senior brother, although you haven't started a family, there are many who care about you. You won't be alone." Guan suddenly asked, "What if they were all like you, what should I do then?" Xiao Chuan was stunned. He looked deep into Gu An's eyes and said, "Senior brother, anyone else might worry about this question, but you needn't. You treat people kindly, always making friends. Besides, solitude isn't necessarily torture. Isn't the choice of what life you want to lead based on your heart? I can be so open-minded because I learned it from you. Ever since I was little, I've admired you the most. No matter how powerful Li, senior brother, is, in my eyes, he doesn't compare to you, because you live freely and can protect the people you want to care for." Upon saying this, Xiao Chuan smiled again. Guan suddenly felt an impulse. This time he wouldn't just go along with Xiao Chuan's wishes. Guan took out a secret book and threw it on the table. Xiao Chuan instinctively looked at it. Surprised, he asked, "What is this?" "This records a kind of spell," Guan began to introduce, and with just a sentence, Xiao Chuan became entranced. Guan took this chance to enlighten Xiao Chuan, immersing his thoughts in the heaven and earth rules, allowing him to momentarily forget about outside matters. Autumn winds swept up the fallen leaves in the courtyard, as if fate refused to let them settle on the ground. Above the sea, dressed in black, Leah stood on a black eagle's back, his gaze fixed on the distance. Above the sea-breaking rift hung a majestic and mighty floating island, on which stood a city emanating an awe-inspiring aura that commanded respect from all living beings. "Broken Sea Domain Master City," Leah muttered to himself, frowning. A divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder and said softly, "There are terrifying things hidden there that will eat me, don't go near." Hearing this, Li Ya's frown deepened, as it was the first time he heard the divine exotic immortal spirit say such a thing. He took a deep breath, then stamped his foot, and the black eagle flapped its wings harder, speeding up like an arrow, quickly diving into the sea-breaking rift. Once inside the dark rift, Li Ya breathed a sigh of relief, his gaze looking down with determination. "Zhang Buku, wait for me, I haven't given up on you." Li Ya's hands tightened into fists within his sleeves, and he drew his heavy sword, ready for battle. Meanwhile, far away in Mystic Valley, Guan was picking medicinal herbs. He couldn't help but stand up and look into the distance. It had been 10 years since he had lectured Xiao Chuan. Over those years, he hadn't seen Xiao Chuan again and had immersed himself back into his life. In those 10 years, he had extended his lifespan by more than 18 million years, and so had been happy every year. It was not until today that the divine exotic immortal spirit told him it sensed a dangerous presence. The divine exotic immortal spirit claimed to feel the presence of a natural enemy within the Broken Sea Domain Master City, an extremely sinister presence. Guan probed with divine thought and discovered a heavenly demon within the Broken Sea Domain Master City. Another heavenly demon. This heavenly demon also possessed the cultivation level of a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Unlike the dark soul ancestor before, this one was a living spirit. There he was, hidden in a dark palace, separated by many restrictions. No matter how Guan saw it, he didn't look like a prisoner. Could it be that the holy king behind the great cold demon sect had a connection with the heavenly demon? Guan didn't alarm them. Exterminating demons was easy, but severing causality was difficult. It was better for both sides to wait, even though he did not know what the other side was waiting for, but he knew he was growing stronger every year. Nirvana, loose immortal, wandering immortal, heaven and earth flying immortal, carefree primordial immortal, divine immortal of wondrous dharma, Tao void mysterious immortal, and divine thought true immortal. In this world where even carefree primordial immortals were rare, Guan, in the realm of divine thought true immortal, had the confidence to face all trials. Guwen watched for a while longer, then withdrew his divine thought. He wasn't panicked by the calculations of that holy king. He felt that the holy king might be a pawn of the heavenly demon. Inviting the hostility of the heavenly demon for personal grievances, though not afraid, was unnecessary. Guwen continued picking medicinal herbs, humming a little tune. Once he finished picking the medicinal herbs, he left Mystic Valley. He arrived on the eaves of a building at the Chuan residence, his gaze on Xiao Chuan, who was cultivating in the courtyard. After that enlightenment, Xiao Chuan devoted more time to cultivation, a subject he had mentioned to no one. Guwen saw that Xiao Chuan's ultimate lifespan had increased to 415 years. Not too bad. He then peeked into Xiao Chuan's causality. On a typical day, Guwen wouldn't only be playing around, he cultivated too. What he studied the most was the causality of life. He could now probe the entire lives of mortals. Even if a 3-year-old child stood before him, he could see the end of their life in an instant. As expected, Xiao Chuan's life had changed. Previously, Guwen saw Xiao Chuan passing away with a peaceful and regret-free departure. This time he saw Xiao Chuan surviving past his original lifespan's end, with the Chuan house also producing a generation with stronger talent for cultivation. But as he watched, Guwen's brows furrowed. Xiao Chuan died at age 413, not living out his full ultimate lifespan because his descendants offended a powerful cultivation family. Worn out from too much exertion, he died of depression in the end. Guwen suddenly felt that his enlightenment of Xiao Chuan might not have been such a good thing. But on second thought, heads simply take action when the time came. He was the biggest variable in Xiao Chuan's life causality. With that in mind, Guwen looked towards the other members of the Chuan family, peering into their lives. A mortal's life seems long to them but is short in his eyes. Their decades of experience would just flash by him, causing no burden and not affecting him in the slightest. That was the strength of a divine thought true immortal. Not to say divine thought true immortal, even a Tao void mysterious immortal could reach this degree. It wasn't long before Guwen's gaze landed on a boy called Chuan Qi. Chuan Qi, untrained in Qi cultivation 3/120/1050, such talent was definitely the strongest among Xiao Chuan's descendants. Guwen began to probe into Chuan Qi's life. It wasn't Chuan Qi who offended the cultivation family, but another member of the Chuan house. After Xiao Chuan's death, Chuan Qi left the family and ventured alone into the immortal cultivation world. This youngster actually lived past the years of his ultimate lifespan, meaning he would encounter great fortunes in the future, the specifics of which Guwen could not determine from causality. Until Chuan Qi met a girl. After that, the causality broke, and his future became unfathomable. When Guwen saw the girl, he could instantly tell she harbored a heavenly demon's soul. Another heavenly demon. Exactly how many heavenly demons had infiltrated the great heavenly spirit land? Guwen frowned and continued to scan the others. He stood proudly on the eaves, unseen by those passing through the courtyard below. After 30 minutes, Guwen finally returned to the third Medicine Valley. He stepped down from the transmission array platform, pondering over causality and fate. "Guwen, come over for a game of Go." A voice called out, and as Guwen turned his head, the caller was none other than the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. In recent years, Lu Xini and stealing the 5 elements had left. There were only 2 great cultivators left in the valley, Xianxia and the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Xianxia was not very interested in Go, preferring to study Journey to the West and Investiture of the Gods. Guwen didn't understand why Xianxia could keep on reading those 2 books over and over, but he chose to respect his choices. Guwen walked towards the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord while simultaneously probing his causality and fate. The higher the opponent's cultivation level, the shorter the lifespan Guwen could see. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's lifespan and causality were extremely complex, staying consistent for decades, but Guwen could no longer see beyond 50 years into the future. Guwen settled down before the Go board as he opened the Go box. He asked, "Predecessor, you have lived for a long time. Tell me, should cultivators intervene in the lives of mortals, even with good intentions?" The nine-fingered divine lord looked at him in surprise upon hearing this question, never expecting him to ask such a thing. You've asked the right person. I think one shouldn't. Cultivation itself is a path against nature. Intervening in a mortal's life will only bring them calamity. There is a will of heaven inherent within the universe. Once, I faced a trial. That ordeal left me gravely injured, losing a finger, but it also confirmed for me the existence of the will of heaven. There is certainly a force beyond the reach and touch of cultivators that may lack consciousness, but it controls the fate of all beings. The higher my cultivation, the more I feel its vastness. As he spoke, a hint of fear even appeared in the eyes of the nine-fingered divine lord. Guan curiously asked, "Is it from Holy Court?" Ever since the establishment of the Broken Sea domain, Holy Court had entered the collective consciousness of the beings on the continent, becoming an institution representing the divine forces amidst mortal beings. The nine-fingered divine lord shook his head and said, "No, Holy Court is also at the mercy of this force. From what I know, between this world and the universe lies a barrier of power that prevents mortal spirits from flying out. It is like a set of rules, and even the Holy Court must obey." Guan looked up, indeed aware of such rules. It was a layer of light enveloping the great heavenly spirit land that forced living beings to reach the heaven and earth flying immortal realm before they could fly to the universe. Even as a divine thought true immortal, Guan could not see through these rules. The divine origin realm where Longzhan was not restricted by such rules. Guan looked up at the sky and placed a stone onto the center of the go board. Chapter 319. Fighting against the heavens after a fierce and exhilarating battle, the nine-fingered divine lord looked extremely displeased. He lifted his eyes to look at Guan and asked through gritted teeth, "Where exactly is the problem?" Guan shrugged and said, "I don't know. Why can you always guess my next move? Intuition tells me where you'll play next, and as long as I guess right, you seem to get flustered and keep changing your strategy, eventually exposing your weaknesses." Guan's response infuriated the nine-fingered divine lord so much that he nearly coughed up blood. Guan's smile faded as he said, "However, this game of chess has indeed made me understand that change can indeed bring disaster. Thank you for your teachings, senior." With that, he stood up, gave a formal bow, and took his leave. The nine-fingered divine lord watched Guan's retreating figure and opened his mouth, but ultimately his gaze fell back on the chessboard. Guan walked towards his loft with a smile on his face. In fact, there was one more thing he didn't say. Change can indeed lead to disaster, but whether it's for better or worse depends on the player himself. Life is like a game of chess, and Guan intends to be a player who always wins, even if his opponent is what they call fate. To struggle against destiny is a joy, isn't it? Having come to this realization, Guan no longer felt burdened. He didn't intend to casually change others' lives, only the lives of those he cared about. Xiaochuan was indeed open-minded, but his wish to be reborn into a good life in the next life also showed his longing for immortal cultivation, just lacking in innate talent. Guan also realized that as long as he kept getting stronger, he could keep pushing the limits of those around him. What cannot be achieved now does not mean it cannot be done in the future. Reincarnation might exist, but he only wished to strive for the present. This Xiaoyu was not the same person from his past life, and Guan was not Longzhan, Xianxia, or Chulu. In the divine exotic realm, beneath the blood-red sky and above the sea of clouds, Zhang Buku stood shoulder to shoulder with the master of divine exotic realm, overlooking the battle below. Endless waves of divine exotic resentful ghosts besieged Liya, coming at him like relentless waves, never ceasing. Without the divine exotic city, Liya was embroiled in a difficult fight. The divine exotic resentful ghosts are undying. With his capabilities, at most he can hold on for one ancient hour, said the master of divine exotic realm, expressionless. Zhang Buku turned to him and asked, "Why won't you let me meet him? I can make things clear." "What things clear?" "Say that someone is backing you, forcing me to not restrict you, and even taking you as a disciple?" The master of divine exotic realm glanced at him coldly and asked. Zhang Buku frowned, not understanding his meaning. The master of divine exotic realm scoffed. Do you think the city in the sky was built to suppress us? If so, why don't they invade? If not for you, then for whom was it established? Asked Zhang Buku in confusion, his eyes widening with surprise. Could it be for Sword Venerable Fudao? Wait, could the person who saved me be Sword Venerable Fudao? Zhang Buku was utterly shocked. So the sparrow had Sword Venerable Fudao backing it. The master of divine exotic realm gazed down at Li Ya and said, after all these years, he's the only one to have broken in. Might this person have some karmic connection with Sword Venerable Fudao? Zhang Buku hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, he received the legacy of Sword Venerable Fudao and learned his swordsmanship. He left unsaid the claim that Li Ya had made, that Sword Venerable Fudao was his primordial ancestor. He now understood that it must have been arranged by Sword Venerable Fudao for them to meet. But he still couldn't figure out why Sword Venerable Fudao had taken an interest in him. So that's how it is. It seems they have reached far and wide, the master of divine exotic realms said somberly. Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask, Master, isn't Holy Court supposed to be good? You've said before that the Holy King doesn't represent Holy Court. The master of divine exotic realm took a deep breath and said, he didn't represent it before, but now it's not certain. The Holy Court tried to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao, but he didn't accept the Chi Fortune outcome. That's enough for the Holy Court to be wary. In fact, there is a certain power in this world that the Holy Court fears. We are the evolution of that power. It's precisely because of this that the Holy King has kept me, wanting to use me to identify that power. Zhang Buku quickly asked about the nature of that power. The master of divine exotic realm uttered two words, heavenly demon. Zhang Buku frowned. This was the first time he had heard of the heavenly demon. Can you spare him? Zhang Buku asked through gritted teeth. He didn't understand what a heavenly demon was. All he wanted was for his brother to live. The master of divine exotic realm said somberly, I've already delayed the time, but if Sword Venerable Fudao doesn't appear and I let him go, then it's you and me who will die. Upon hearing this, Zhang Buku looked around. He increasingly felt as if there were eyes watching him from the shadows. He noticed the master of divine exotic realm's hand on his waist casting a spell. He looked back down and his eyes hardened. He was about to rush to help, but as he leaned forward, a hand pressed down on him. He turned to look, and the person holding his shoulder was the master of divine exotic realm. The master of divine exotic realm's expression was indifferent. At this moment, his look made Zhang Buku feel alienated and cold. The thought of Li Ya possibly dying was the thing Zhang Buku couldn't accept the most. He wanted to speak, but he couldn't utter a sound. In the vast sea of ghosts, Li Ya wielded his heavy sword, sweeping powerfully in all directions, but no matter how many divine exotic resentful ghosts he vanquished, more swarmed in. Damn it! Do you really acknowledge me as your master? Why won't you listen to me? Li Ya cursed in his heart. He was unable to harness the power of the divine exotic city, which frustrated him greatly. No, it will devour me. The voice of the divine exotic immortal spirit rang out, filled with fear. Li Ya was infuriated by this. How had this creature become so gutless? Damn it! Was he to die here before even seeing Zhang Buku? If junior brother Gu knew of his death, would he grieve? No, that's wrong. Having been gone for so long and so far away, would junior brother Gu reach the end of his life still thinking him out conquering the world? Perhaps that's for the best. Li Ya's sword swings began to slow. Flashes of memories from his youth passed before his eyes. When he and Meng Lang and Li Ya had all entered the Mystic Valley, with Meng Lang gone missing, and now him about to die here, who would have thought the least talented Gu in would be the last one alive? What a twist of fate! A divine exotic resentful ghost suddenly lunged at Li Ya, holding a soul sword whose cold light shattered all the visions before his eyes and filled his pupils. Am I going to die? Li Ya's pupils dilated. Just then, his body burst into golden light, like unstoppable waves wiping out all the surrounding divine exotic resentful ghosts. Li Ya was taken aback by the sudden change in the scenery as a golden city's phantom emerged from within him, rapidly enlarging to envelope him. The divine exotic city. Liya was overjoyed, ready to ask why the divine exotic immortal spirit had suddenly chosen to defy, when a terrifying and unmatched pressure descended, enveloping the whole world. Have you finally decided to come forth, Sword Venerable Fudao? To entrust such an immortal path supreme treasure to a mere mortal child for amusement, what a grand gesture! An ancient and majestic voice sounded, causing Liya to become stunned. The primordial ancestor. Chapter 320, Great Nether Saint King Divine Exotic City appeared, and the entire dim world was illuminated by dazzling golden light. Among it, Liya stared dumbfoundedly at his surroundings. He could feel that the power of Divine Exotic City was stronger than when he had used it, and it was incomparable. This meant that the voice from earlier was telling the truth. Thinking about it, he had never truly mastered the power of Divine Exotic City. It was always commanded by Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit. Above the clouds, the master of Divine Exotic Realm looked at the ever-expanding Divine Exotic City, his eyes flickering, unsure of his thoughts. Zhang Buku, however, felt a surge of relief. Should Sword Venerable Fudao truly arrive, then Liya would be saved. In his heart, Sword Venerable Fudao was an invincible existence, a belief shared by all creatures from the Taizong continent. A figure materialized next to Liya. He glanced over, his pupils suddenly dilating. It was that familiar demonic shadow. The dark purple demonic chi did not seem evil in his eyes but rather appeared endearing. Guwen tilted his head, glancing towards Liya. Liya quickly raised his hand in salute and said, "Primordial ancestor." Words jammed in his throat, unable to be spoken. Boom, rolling thunderclouds quickly covered the blood-red heavens, countless thunderbolts twirling like dragons and snakes, immensely spectacular, plunging the land into oppression. The sea of clouds formed a giant face, occupying most of the sky, making everything between heaven and earth seem insignificant. Zhang Buku looked up at this giant face, speechless with shock, feeling an extremely terrifying pressure that he had never experienced before. Even the Master of Divine Exotic Realm looked solemn. The strength of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm was comparable to that of a carefree primordial immortal, yet he did not possess the comfort of a carefree primordial immortal. This giant face was truly the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, an existence surpassing the carefree primordial immortal. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm couldn't help but turn his gaze towards Guwen inside Divine Exotic City, thinking expectantly, "Sword Venerable Fudao, how will you face this?" Even the powerful Great Cold Demon sect that besieged the continent in the past couldn't achieve such a presence. "Sword Venerable Fudao, why have you not accepted the rewards from the Holy Court?" An aged voice sounded again, stern in tone. Guwen slightly lifted his head, his voice reverberating across the heaven and earth. "Why must I accept? Am I considered a demon if I do not join the Holy Court?" If the Holy Court truly thought this way, Guwen couldn't help but be more wary of the Chi Fortune. Is Chi Fortune not a form of bondage? None of such, but refusing to join the Holy Court surely has some dubious reason. "Sword Venerable Fudao, why do you refuse to show yourself? What exactly are you apprehensive about?" The aged voice boomed like thunder, echoing unceasingly. Guwen, hearing this, lost all interest in conversing. 3 breaths time, if you don't leave, don't blame me for lacking respect for the Holy Court. Guwen's voice was chilling, putting the entire heaven and earth on edge for a killing spree. The giant face above clearly changed, but it did not respond. 3 breaths time seemed so prolonged at this moment. Zhang Buku and Liya dared not even breathe, and the Master of Divine Exotic Realm likewise awaited the decision of that mysterious existence. Such a formidable being, and even Sword Venerable Fudao could disregard it. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm was profoundly moved, believing his choice was right. He could easily kill Liya, but the reason he hadn't was purely out of respect for Sword Venerable Fudao. After 3 breaths, Guwen raised his right hand, his palm facing the giant face in the sky. "Sword Venerable." As he began to speak, the giant face in the sky suddenly vanished, and Guwen withdrew his hand. The world instantly fell into silence. Liya's eyes widened, He saw the rolling thunderclouds silently torn open, creating a giant hole exactly where the mysterious giant face had been. He instinctively looked towards Guan, seeing an old man enveloped in mist in Guan's palm, the elder full of panic, unable to struggle or escape. Even though the old man was speaking, Liya couldn't hear a word. Guan then disappeared from the spot. Divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on Liya's shoulder, tiny hands patting her small chest, looking extremely relieved. Zhang Buku and the master of divine exotic realm were also stunned. What they had thought would be an unprecedented great war, the master of divine exotic realm had even prepared for the world to shatter, yet the mysterious great power from the holy court was just taken away like this. How high could Sword Venerable Fudeo's realm be? The master of divine exotic realm was filled with fear, a terrifying thought suddenly occurring to him. Could it be that Sword Venerable Fudao was truly a heavenly demon, and from the beginning he stood in opposition to the holy court? The waves crashed against the shore. Guan sat on the rock, having already activated the life-span barrier, his right hand opened, containing the old man sitting cross-legged inside, who was indeed the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma stationed at the domain master city of the Broken Sea domain. Guan was performing the great imprisoned soul immortal technique, searching the other's memories. This person, named Luo Shuzi, was a reincarnation of the heavenly demon, holding a third-grade heavenly position in the holy court, one of the confidants of the great Nether Saint King. Luo Zuz's many memories were protected by a mystery spell, which would shatter and dissipate automatically if invaded, all related to the great Nether Saint King. Unfortunately, such methods were akin to child's play before Guan's divine sense. He easily deciphered them and glimpsed into Luo Zuz's dealings with the great Nether Saint King. The creation of the Broken Sea domain was indeed set by the great Nether Saint King. Within it was his arch-nemesis, the Candle World Saint King. Initially, the great Nether Saint King merely wanted to exterminate the Candle World Saint King, keeping him eternally in reincarnation. Many under his command took this opportunity for their gain, leading to the calamity in the Broken Sea domain. After Guan made his move, the great Nether Saint King regarded him as an enemy. Now, the great Nether Saint King suspected Guan might also be a reincarnation of the heavenly demon, hence he sent Luo Shuzi over. According to Luo Zuz's memories, the great Nether Saint King was not a heavenly demon, but he was fervently searching for the reincarnation of the heavenly demon, his intentions unknown to anyone. It appears it wasn't the holy court aiming for Sword Venerable Fudao but the great Nether Saint King's intent. The holy court had profound depth and numerous factions. Viewing the Broken Sea domain, it seemed vast, but in the eyes of the greater heavenly spirit land, it was but trivial, not even reaching the eyes of the standard first-rank heavenly position. The third-grade heavenly position, also known as the Holy King, was not short of position holders in the Holy Court. Ascending further were the second-grade heavenly position's Holy Minister and the first-grade heavenly position's Holy God. After searching Luo Zuz's soul, Guan extinguished his soul. He wasn't concerned about further tricks from the great Nether Saint King. In fact, he was looking forward to seeing what the great Nether Saint King would do next. Facing an unknown adversary, regardless of how powerful his minions were, they would fall discreetly. Wouldn't the great Nether Saint King feel pressured? Although the Holy Court didn't care about the Broken Sea domain, the epic battle between Guan and the Great Cold Demon sect from years ago did reach the Holy Court. The Holy Court's ability to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao also showed that most of the upper echelons in the Holy Court were favorable towards Sword Venerable Fudao's actions, which is why the great Nether Saint King only dared to operate from the shadows. A prompt appeared before Guan. He had seized over 20,000 years of Luo Zuz's lifespan. These great powers really are brash, acting so recklessly. Of course, facing an existence like Guan, even if they hide their true forms, Guan would find a way to locate them. Back in the Seven-Star Spirit Realm, the thousand-faced Divine Lord who escaped from Guan's clutches could also be located by him now, but seeing him behave, Guan didn't pursue him. Immortal cultivation was never easy. If one could recognize the situation and act accordingly, Guan would still admire that. To date, regarding the thousand-faced Divine Lord escaping from his hands, frankly, He was somewhat looking forward to seeing how far the thousand-faced divine lord could go. Guan stood up and vanished from the rock. In the main city of the Broken Sea Domain, inside a dim grand hall, Domain Master Xianxia stood on the steps, hands clasped behind his back, his eyebrows deeply furrowed. How come it suddenly went quiet? Could it be that even Elder Luo Shuzi is not a match for Sword Venerable Fudao? Even if he is not, there shouldn't be silence, Xianxia thought, frowning. Dressed in a green robe, he exuded a calm demeanor, appearing in his 40s, with the oppressive aura of someone in power. He possessed the cultivation level of the 7th layer of the carefree primordial immortal realm and was recognized by the Holy Court as the Domain Master of Broken Sea Domain. He had never felt as anxious as he did today. The sea-breaking rift was just below. If there were any battles, he would definitely detect them immediately. He now dared not extend his divine sense into the rift for fear of provoking trouble. Even if Luo Shuzi failed, Sword Venerable Fudao likely wouldn't dare confront the Holy Court directly. He just needed to pretend ignorance. Just then, a series of footsteps approached. Lu Xinyi came walking briskly, leaving a trail of afterimages. He stopped before the steps, raising his hand in salute to Xianxia and smiling. "I wonder why the elder has summoned me. What is the matter?" Xianxia turned to look at him, revealing a smile as he said, "I and your father are fellow disciples. What elder are you speaking to?" "That's too formal. Call me your teacher uncle from now on." "Teacher uncle?" Lu Xinyi responded, his mind already calculating. The other clearly needed him, which was why he showed such an attitude. As for the great Nether Saint King behind Xianxia, he was also aware. Could it be that the main city of the Broken Sea Domain was thwarted by Sword Venerable Fudao? Lu Xinyi inwardly chuckled, knowing that over the years, many of the Holy Court's pieces infiltrated the Taizong continent and even the Supreme Sect to investigate Sword Venerable Fudao. He could guess that the Great Nether Saint King was somewhat unrelenting. The Great Cold Demon Sect was a powerful weapon in the hands of the Great Nether Saint King, gaining considerable power and authority by performing numerous dirty tasks for the Holy Court. Hence, his power continued to grow, and the errors he made weren't likely to shake his position. Indeed, the calamity in the Broken Sea Domain was seen as a mistake by the Great Nether Saint King by the Holy Court, but such a mistake wasn't considered significant. Even several could deduce the Great Nether Saint King's plans against the Candle World Saint King, many choosing to turn a blind eye. Weighing the ruling Holy King against the reincarnated Holy King was an easy choice. Xianxia looked at Lu Xinyi and asked with a smile, "Sword Venerable Fudao refuses to accept the Qi fortune from the Holy Court, having stayed in the Supreme Sect for so many years. What do you think should be done? Should he be left to his own devices, or should his background be investigated?" Lu Xinyi thought to himself, as expected, and after pondering he said, "Teacher uncle, do you think Sword Venerable Fudao is formidable?" "Of course, he's formidable, beyond my comparison," Xianxia answered without hesitation. Lu Xinyi continued, "Since that is the case, why bother to offend him? Wouldn't it be sufficient to just manage the Broken Sea Domain well?" Xianxia frowned. Lu Xinyi meaningfully said, "Sword Venerable Fudao appeared in the land of the reincarnation of the Candle World Saint King. These two very likely have a connection. Why Sword Venerable Fudao hides his identity is worth considering. Teacher uncle, my father once said, surviving in the Holy Court is like walking on thin ice. No matter how high one's cultivation level is, staying alive is the most important." Chapter 321 Evil Tree. The events that took place within the sea-breaking rift did not spread, and just like that, a divine immortal of wondrous dharma disappeared without a trace. Since then, Guan distinctly felt that the number of people on the continent probing for the Sword Venerable Fudao had sharply decreased. It seemed that the master of the Broken Sea Domain had already made a choice. If the Holy Court truly stopped scheming against Guan, he naturally didn't bother to hold a grudge. Living in peace was what he hoped for. A period of peace came to the Broken Sea Domain, and despite great talents and powers continuously emerging in the world, Guan hid within the Supreme Sect and observed the world's vicissitudes with a smile. In the blink of an eye, 50 years swiftly passed. Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, and looking at his attribute panel, a smile spread across his face. Name, Guan, lifespan, 293/470, 569, 402. Today's harvest from the Outer World cave had allowed him to gain nearly 40 million years of lifespan in one go. It was so exhilarating. This was still the first large-scale herbal harvest from the Outer World cave. Every year he would plant high-rank medicinal herbs in the Outer World cave, and the income from lifespan would only increase more and more. 50 years had gone by, and the Supreme Sect was flourishing. Nowadays, in terms of paper strength, it was one of the top great sects on the continent, with only the 7 Stars Spirit Realm comparable. The servant disciples within the Third Medicine Valley had also been largely replaced. Some left, and others came. The scene in the Medicine Valley was much the same as it was 50 years ago. Along the way, Guan greeted his disciples non-stop. This scene left Ji Xiaoyu standing before the pavilion feeling somewhat dazed. After being away for so many years, the fact that the valley remained unchanged made her feel incredibly moved. Guan made his way to the pavilion, sizing up Ji Xiaoyu, and smiled. "Many years have passed, yet your aura is even more impressive." Ji Xiaoyu, dressed in green garments, still had an elegant charm. Her flowing clothes resembled a skirt, creating illusions of drifting clouds as they billowed in the wind. She fixed Guan with her gaze and said, "So many years have passed, and you are still at the core formation realm, while I have become a divinity transformation cultivator. Do you regret it?" "Regret? How could that be possible? Following you out, always encountering danger?" Guan mentally complained. Over the years, he had often used his divine thought to keep watch over Ji Xiaoyu, and he even acted a few times to ensure she always escaped danger by a hair's breadth. He knew all too well what she had been through. "I don't regret it at all. I've had a good time these years. As for cultivation level, slow and steady wins the race. I will condense the nascent soul sooner or later," Guan replied casually. Ji Xiaoyu scrutinized him closely, and upon confirming that he wasn't lying, a smile appeared on her face. What she admired most was Guan's temperament. She had never seen him angry or envious, as he always seemed to be smiling. "Shall we talk upstairs?" Guan asked with a smile, knowing Ji Xiaoyu had a lot to say. For Guan, the journeys Ji Xiaoyu had embarked upon these past years couldn't compare to the distance of a single step for him, but for her, these decades were lengthy, and he would occasionally hear her murmuring to a campfire when alone. The stealing the 5 elements, who had been tailing Ji Xiaoyu, had never shown up, merely escorting her in secret for a part of her journey. Once they were upstairs in the house, Ji Xiaoyu began recounting her experiences throughout the years. Her stories were rich, with demon slaying, thrilling adventures, and even encounters with old grudges. Guan listened intently, chiming in from time to time, keeping Ji Xiaoyu's desire to share stories high. After more than an ancient hour, Ji Xiaoyu finally finished telling her tales. Guan exclaimed, "How exciting, just like the stories narrated by storytellers." Ji Xiaoyu laughed. "I obtained the inheritance left by someone from a previous life. The journey was worthwhile, but it's unknown how far I can go. It should be the second layer of the Immortal path." Guan had seen that secret realm, created by a loose Immortal, which meant that Ji Xiaoyu's predecessor's highest cultivation realm reached the loose Immortal realm. For the current Ji Xiaoyu, how formidable a loose Immortal was practically out of reach. Guan asked with a smile, "What are your plans going forward?" Ji Xiaoyu replied, "Settle for a few decades before considering another journey. The ranking competition is about to begin, which is a good opportunity to enjoy the excitement. The Supreme Sect is not what it used to be, and this ranking competition will surely be lively. It's said that a loose Immortal joined the Supreme Sect in the last couple of years. Have you heard about the loose Immortal?" As Guan spoke of the competition, he became more talkative. Ji Xiaoyu watched him with a slight smile on her lips. This guy still loved to see the world bustling. Listening to Guan talk about the highlights of the ranking competition, along with the sounds of insects and voices from outside the window, Ji Xiaoyu's heart fell into tranquility. Having witnessed the world's turmoil, she now felt a sense of peace inside, free of any pressure or concern. After spending the afternoon with Ji Xiaoyu, Gu finally left the Third Medicine Valley and headed to the Mystic Valley's 8 scenic caves underground. He arrived in front of the green vine tree, where a large cauldron was set up, surrounded by various instruments. Over the past 30 years, he had been studying the art of artifact refining. He wasn't after creating any phenomenal Dharma treasures, but rather sought realizations through the process of forging. The Dharma treasures he had forged by now were coveted by the Supreme Sect, but he didn't hand them over to the sect, instead tossing them to the Immortal's seeking island for sale, exchanging the spirit stones received for seeds and refining materials. With a cultivation of divine thought immortal status, it wasn't difficult for Gu to forge immortal treasures, but creating supreme immortal path treasures was still out of reach. Supreme immortal path treasures could only be created by immensely powerful beings standing at the peak of the 9 heavens of the immortal path, the crystallization of a lifetime's Tao from a major immortal path power. In the entire great heavenly spirit land, forces that owned supreme immortal path treasures were territorial overlords, and those who could fully wield the power of such treasures were few and far between. At least Gu had yet to see such individuals. Long Zhan had one such treasure. When he reached the pinnacle of the 9 heavens of the immortal path, he could suppress an entire universe with just one treasure, incredibly formidable. Gu had just approached the cauldron when it, along with the surrounding instruments, began to blaze with fire. 2 vines stretched from behind, beginning to massage Gu's shoulders. "Master, that guy, are you really not going to intervene?" The voice of the green vine tree sounded, still similar to Xianxia, but weaker. Gu replied, "It's fine. It's impossible for the other party to step foot here." Because of the influence of Sword Venerable Fudao, the reputation of the Supreme Sect had far outshone its actual strength. Thus, the upcoming ranking competition also attracted a multitude of overseas cultivators and demons. Among them was a presence that made the green vine tree afraid, and Gu had already located that presence. It was a shape-shifting tree demon, its cultivation having reached the wandering immortal stage, who was currently hiding its cultivation level and joining the ranking competition as a Mahayana cultivator. A wandering immortal posed no threat to Gu, and therefore he didn't care. What he did care about was another individual. Someone from the immortal spirit dynasty had arrived at the Supreme Sect, whose cultivation level was that of a carefree primordial immortal, but had hidden it, presenting themselves merely as an ordinary loose immortal. Of course, even a loose immortal was enough to be treated as an honored guest by the Supreme Sect. Gu was curious about the purpose of the immortal spirit dynasty's visit. There would be quite a show at this ranking competition. "Master, can you subdue him?" the green vine tree cautiously asked. Gu, thinking it was worried, grunted in affirmation. He felt the vines on his shoulders tremble, followed by the voice of green vine tree, "Then can you capture him and let me eat him?" Gu was taken aback and turned to look at the green vine tree in surprise. It had been so afraid moments ago, and now it wanted to eat someone? He had almost forgotten that the green vine tree came from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, a demon path sect, so naturally, it could be an evil tree. "Don't get any funny ideas, or watch out, I might eat you instead," Gu said in no good mood. The green vine tree used to love eating lamb. If its murderous nature wasn't restrained, Gu feared for his disciples' safety. He kept the green vine tree mainly for the production of the green vine fruit. To him now, the green vine tree was not indispensable. Seemingly sensing Gu's displeasure, the green vine tree fell silent, and the 2 vines massaging his shoulders became even more careful. The next day at noon, Gu arrived at the outer gate city riding the blood prison Great Saint. The city was overcrowded, and even the air was bustling with a multitude of cultivators and demons. 50 years had passed, and Gu had even more acquaintances in the city. Wherever he went, people greeted him. He also encountered the son of Zuijian, Zuolin, who was also Li Ya's childhood friend. Not practicing the sword Dao, he was a genuine prodigy. Now, Zuolin had completely abandoned the sword Dao and become a modestly famous talent. The 2 would meet every year, and their relationship remained strong. Zuolin began to complain about his father straight away. It was once again because of Sword Venerable Fudao that had offended a great cultivator. Day and night, He guarded the heaven-cutting axe. Despite this, Zhuoyijian had offended quite a few, resulting in frequent intrusions and investigations into the Zhuo family. Luckily, with Sword Venerable Fudao around, no one dared make a move. Still, the Zhuo family lived in constant fear of a catastrophe befalling them. Suddenly, Guan thought he should probably give Zhuoyijian some advice. To be honest, he clearly saw the devotion in Zhuoyijian's attitude and felt it deserved recognition. He should take the opportunity to guide him, not letting Zhuoyijian's efforts go to waste. After chatting for a while, they parted ways. Guan, using his mind, communicated with the Blood Prison Great Saint, who changed direction. The crowd surged, vendors on both sides shouted continuously, and Guan rode on the back of the Blood Prison Great Saint, looking curiously at everything along the way. This feeling was much like attending a fair. Unlike other meetings, the ranking competition was held every 100 years, making it the most important event for the Supreme Sect and even the entire Taizong continent, with a liveliness that couldn't be compared to any other time. The arrival of many sects also brought many new items. After 30 minutes, the Blood Prison Great Saint stopped in front of a pavilion, and Guan dismounted, entering a store named the Pavilion of Wonders. Once inside the hall, his vision was filled with numerous treasures, and his gaze fell upon an individual. Xianxia, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm, Level 7359098/70000/250000, 2.5 million years of ultimate lifespan. Guan estimated he had the potential to reach the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal level. This person was the Carefree Primordial Immortal from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty, standing in front of a shelf, toying with a broken flute. Guan stepped forward, passing by his side. Zhang Xianwang didn't pay him any mind, and both stood in front of the same shelf, admiring treasures. After a while, Zhang Xianwang glanced at Guan, and at that glance, his eyebrows suddenly raised. "Young man, where do those gold patterns on your forehead come from?" Zhang Xianwang asked, his tone gentle and devoid of any great cultivator's assertiveness. Guan touched his forehead and smiled. "One night when I woke up, this gold pattern had appeared. Does Taoist friend know its origin?" Chapter 322, The Guidance of the Tao. These are Tao patterns, the initial manifestation of the Tao. Some people are born with the Tao, some cultivate it later in life. Like the sudden gain you've experienced is not unheard of. Regardless, possessing Tao patterns means that sooner or later, you will transcend the mortal plane and become an immortal. Let me offer you my early congratulations. Zhang Xianwang spoke with a chuckle, appreciation gleaming in his eyes. Guan immediately clasped his fists in response. "This one's name is Guan. May I inquire about my Taoist friend's illustrious name?" He could feel that Zhang Xianwang was deducing his karma, but he didn't mind. His own karmic manifestations had long been altered by him. Unless one's realm was higher than his, looking at his true self would reveal only the life of an ordinary disciple tending the fields, unremarkable and plain. "I am Zhang Xianwang, from a very distant place. To meet is to be fated. Why don't you show me around? I'd also like to learn about the Heavenly Ranking Tournament and the Supreme Sect." Faced with Zhang Xianwang's suggestion, Guan naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, he was here for Zhang Xianwang. The two walked out of the treasure pavilion, and upon seeing Guan's mount, Zhang Xianwang didn't think much of it as he couldn't see through the path of returning primordial spirit. On the way, Guan introduced the Supreme Sect, and when he mentioned the sword Venerable Fudao, Zhang Xianwang immediately inquired about the specific details. As they discussed the sword Venerable Fudao, Guan's face lit up with fanaticism, praising him to the skies. The Blood Prison Great Saint remained expressionless, yet inwardly he was impressed. Such magnanimity from his master was worth learning. If he were Zhang Xianwang, he would never associate Guan with the sword Venerable Fudao. Not only did Zhang Xianwang find the Blood Prison Great Saint ordinary, but the Blood Prison Great Saint also didn't think highly of Zhang Xianwang. Both were great cultivators hiding their true cultivation levels, with inevitable pride within them. Inadvertently, the two arrived near the heavenly repair platform. Guan asked with a smile, there's a heaven-cutting axe on the platform, would you like to give it a try? Xianxia gazed off into the distance, shook his head slightly. I'm certain I cannot pull it out, no need. He turned back towards Guwen. He'll be staying at the Supreme Sect for quite some time. Next time we meet, he'll treat you to a drink. If someone tries to tempt you to leave the Supreme Sect, you'd better refuse. Possessing Dao patterns is an innate blessing, but they can also attract calamities. At least within the Supreme Sect, the sword Venerable Fudao protects you, so others won't dare to mess around. After speaking, he turned and left. Guwen looked at his retreating figure, thinking to himself that this person was quite agreeable. He had assumed that the people from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty were all haughty as they seldom interacted with the outside world. Yet today's encounter had given Guwen a different perspective on the Immortal Spirit Dynasty. Guwen looked distantly towards the heaven-cutting axe, where Zuijin stood by the axe side, guarding it day in and day out for 10 years. Now, when one mentioned the heaven-cutting axe, it was hard to bypass Zuijin. Guwen's thoughts stirred, his divine thought mixed with powerful sword intent boldly invading Zuijin's eyes, causing him to become dazed. Immediately after, Guwen rode the blood prison great saint in another direction, without approaching the platform. Zhang Xianwang, not yet far off, stopped in his tracks and turned around, his eyes widening in astonishment. At the same time, a sky-reaching sword intent erupted from Zuijin, causing cultivators nearby to swiftly retreat, figures materializing out of nowhere around the heaven-cutting axe, isolating Zuijin. Zuijin's eyes lost their luster, and he stood there dazed, sword intent rising from below, billowing his robes and hair. Feeling the sword intent belonging to Sword Venerable Fudao, the great cultivators of the Supreme Sect all breathed a sigh of relief. What's happened to him? It's the sword intent of Sword Venerable Fudao. Feel it carefully, Zuijin's sword chi is growing stronger. Is Sword Venerable Fudao giving him guidance? If it's him, I can understand. After all, he has stood guard here for so many years. So he wasn't lying. Did Sword Venerable Fudao really pat his shoulder back then? The cultivators murmured among themselves as Zuijin was immersed in the sword intent, unable to extricate himself. Far beneath the heavenly repair platform, Zhang Xianwang felt the sword intent emanating from Zuijin's body, and his mind was profoundly shaken. He was, after all, a carefree primordial immortal, yet he could not detect Sword Venerable Fudao making his move. He even failed to comprehend how Sword Venerable Fudao's sword intent could lead Zuijin into a state of path enlightenment. At this moment, he realized his own insignificance. The carefree primordial immortal was merely at ease. He had not yet reached the stage of pondering the great Tao. In his peripheral vision was the retreating figure of Guwen, who nonetheless had not caught his attention. He couldn't imagine that Guwen, who had chosen a different path from his own, was the very Sword Venerable Fudao who had brought him such astonishment. Guwen did not look back, keeping his achievements and fame concealed. Hearing the distant clamor, the blood prison great saint also did not turn his head, knowing that the legendary Sword Venerable Fudao was right behind him. When immortals intervene, mortals tend to fuss over nothing. How tedious! After seeing Zhang Xianwang, Guwen continued roaming around the city, purchased many items, and then returned to the valley. Back in the Third Medicine Valley, Guwen found an Exon and handed over the things he had purchased. The Third Medicine Valley also stored many medicinal herbs, elixirs, secret books, and magic artifacts, allowing servant disciples to purchase them directly at lower prices than in the city. This was a benefit Guwen bestowed upon his disciples. Comparing the prices, they grew even more grateful to him. Such deeds meant that even after servant disciples completed their foundation establishment and later saw Guwen, they would still address him respectfully as master. After arranging all of this, Guwen prepared to go upstairs and read. Coincidentally, Shenzhen arrived at that moment. Guwen had no choice but to stop and wait for her. Over these years, Shenzhen had not neglected her proper affairs and had even passed on her insights to the Supreme Sect, helping to create many transmission jade slips. These allowed disciples to cultivate not just by understanding the text, but by visualizing the cultivation scenes, a merit that garnered her true respect within the Supreme Sect. Come upstairs quick, there's something great. Shenzhen said in a rush and then hurried upstairs, with Guwen following behind. Inside the room, once the door was closed, Guwen felt the aura below grow faint. It was obvious that Ji Xiaoyu was attempting to eavesdrop again. Reaching the table, Shenzhen pulled out a painting and quickly spread it open. Guwen walked over to look and saw an ancient painting, depicting many naked people kneeling on the ground, waving towards the sky, where a group of people robed in splendor floated amidst the clouds as if they were immortal beings. I previously came across an incomplete ancient scroll and have been analyzing it daily, imagining its complete scene. Perhaps there is a hidden guidance within the Tao leading me, said Shenzhen, brimming with pride. It was imagined? Upon closer inspection, Guwen noticed that the contours of the environment captured in the painting contained the mysteries of heaven and earth rules. Could it be that there was indeed a Tao guiding Shenzhen? Something wasn't right. Why would it be Shenzhen? Guwen began to doubt whether Shenzhen truly could reach enlightenment through music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He had earlier made a move that had shocked Zhang Xianwang, and now it was Shenzhen's turn to shock him. To grasp the heaven and earth rules without stepping into the immortal path realm? That was preposterous. Could she be the reincarnation of an immortal? But that shouldn't be the case. If she were the reincarnation of a great power, Guwen would likely have perceived some hints, just like with Ji Xiaoyu and Yang Jian. No matter how he looked at her, Shenzhen did not appear to have a significant background. Chapter 323 The Path of Destiny. Guwen couldn't help but use lifespan detection on Shenzhen. Shenzhen, Divinity Transformation Realm, second layer 329/1200/5800, her maximum lifespan had increased by more than 1,000 years. Could it be that she also possessed an innate enlightenment saint body? Filled with curiosity, Guwen decided to observe Shenzhen more in the future. As Shenzhen began to narrate the process of her painting, Guwen carefully looked at the scroll before him. It seemed to depict a mortal pleading for the compassion of an immortal, but the execution was quite strange. The person kneeling on the ground was smiling, while the high and mighty immortal had a frown. The outline of the clouds, the lines of the mountains, the currents in the rivers, etc., all were manifestations of the rules of heaven and earth. Once the scroll was unfurled, the actual rules of heaven and earth subtly drew closer to it. In the eyes of a divine thought true immortal, the world became both bizarre and splendid. Shenzhen, immersed in it, couldn't feel the changes in the rules of heaven and earth and continued to excitedly share her creative process. Guwen began to probe into the causality surrounding Shenzhen and saw all of the experiences of her life. He suddenly realized that, without being aware of it, he had become the person most closely tied to the causality of Shenzhen's life. The relationship between Shenzhen and the Daotian sect grew increasingly distant. Although she was the daughter of the sect hierarch, her father had many children. Without regular contact, the bond between father and daughter became ever more distant, with her mother having passed away long ago. Guwen suddenly had a bold thought. Could it be that Shenzhen was influenced by him? After all, he was a divine thought true immortal. Even though he concealed his cultivation level, his essence of life was still different from the surrounding disciples. Over the years, the time it took for disciples to enter Medicine Valley and complete their apprenticeship had become increasingly short, which could also be due to his influence. The degree to which Shenzhen had reached was not to be underestimated. Her innate comprehension was remarkable. But without Guwen, it might have been very difficult for her to achieve this step. Gradually, Guwen's understanding of the way of cause and effect deepened. On reflection, Guwen had influenced the entire Supreme Sect. Regardless of the reason, the Supreme Sect indeed had entered an unprecedented phase of rapid development. After a while, Shenzhen's voice brought Guwen's thoughts back to the present. "Hey, are you listening?" Guwen turned to look at Shenzhen, who had a gritted teeth expression that didn't look fierce, but rather made Guwen want to reach out and pinch her. "I'm listening, you are really incredible. I can't understand how you did it. If what you say is true, you might really have the talent for enlightenment," Guwen praised. Upon hearing this, a broad smile broke across Shenzhen's face. She chuckled proudly and said, "This painting is for you then. I'll continue to meditate." With that, she turned and left. Guwen didn't see her off, but instead turned his gaze back to the scroll on the table. He felt the energy from below returning to normal. Ji Xiaoyu was once again immersed in her cultivation, but he didn't care. He sat on the chair, looking at the scroll, lost in thought. The influence he had on his surroundings wasn't just active from his side but also aided by the momentum of heaven and earth, which gave him a deeper understanding of the ways of heaven and earth. He had this inexplicable feeling that he wanted to hide, but the way of heaven and earth did not want him to hide, hence it influenced the environment around him. The great momentum of heaven and earth was like a surging tide. The nets of cause and effect were like heaven-trapping webs. All beings could neither resist them nor escape. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. While helping the environment around him, he would also be drawn into more webs of causality. In that moment, Guwen suddenly understood why many great powers retreated into seclusion indefinitely. It might not be merely because enlightenment took so much time. Just like the great cold demon sect, there must be many great cultivators hidden away in seclusion who had evaded disaster precisely because they withdrew from the world. Is this not a way of surviving? Guwen was not fearful because of this revelation. Rather, he was contemplating how heaven and earth operated the laws of causality and destiny, creating a set of rules that most beings fear. Destiny. Guwen never believed in an irresistible destiny. That which is irresistible is only so because it still lies within the rules. If one's strength surpasses the rules, how can one be manipulated? As for how to transcend destiny and surpass the ways of heaven and earth, that was the real direction Guwen needed to think about. He sat in his room without moving all night, and early the next day, he rode the blood prison great saint to the outer gate city to watch the excitement. A night had passed, and Zuijian was still in deep enlightenment, with over 100 great cultivators from the supreme sect protecting him and temporarily suspending the inheritance assessment of the heaven-cutting axe, not allowing anyone to approach Zuijian. Zuijian's cultivation level was not worth mentioning in the current supreme sect, but as he received the sword intent inheritance of the sword Venerable Fudao, it had a completely different significance. The supreme sect placed great importance on it, as a way to show respect to the sword Venerable Fudao. As Guwen arrived at the outer gate city not long after, he encountered a middle-aged man accompanied by several young men and women. They were walking among the crowd, looking around curiously, finding everything new and amazing. "Chuanyue, long time no see." A voice reached Chuanyu's ears, prompting him to turn his head instinctively, only to see the blood prison great saint standing next to Guwen. The blood prison great saint was as tall as an adult and had a domineering presence, but Chuanyue had seen larger demon pets and mounts, so he was not flustered. Chuanyue looked at Guwen with doubt and asked, "You are?" The fact that the other person was riding a mount meant he must be a cultivator, and Chuanyue had to approach him cautiously. The descendants of the Chuanyue family following behind were just as curious, sizing up Guwen, surprised to find that someone in the supreme sect knew their grandfather. Guwen smiled and said, "Have you forgotten? I met you in your home when you were only 15 years old. You kept nagging your grandfather to take you on the path of immortal cultivation." Chuanyue was stunned, then his eyes widened in astonishment and he asked, "You're the person who visited my grandfather back then? How come you, so young?" Guwen asked, "How is your grandfather?" Chuanyue hurriedly replied, "He's quite well, spends his days cultivating and drinking tea, with no need to worry about anything." The descendants of the Chuanyue family looked at one another in confusion. Their grandfather's grandfather was the primordial ancestor of their family, wasn't he? They had only seen Xiaochuan once or twice, and in their minds, Xiaochuan was amiable, but with a status far beyond theirs, they could only feel reverence. After a conversation, Guwen learned that Chuanyue had come to bring his descendants to broaden their horizons, while also seeking opportunities. Guwen took out a token from his sleeve and tossed it to Chuanyue. If their aptitude is not exceptionally outstanding and there are no other connections, they can seek to become servant disciples at the Chores Hall. With this token of mine, you can enter the Third Medicine Valley. Chuanyue instinctively caught the token and was about to inquire further when the blood prison great saint took a step forward and brushed past him. Chuanyue turned to look at Guwen's retreating figure and asked, "Senior, how should I address you?" Guan simply raised his hand and made no sound. Chuanyue couldn't help but stare at the token in his hand, deeply puzzled. At that moment, another male cultivator came over and laughed. "Brother, you're in luck to be connected to the Third Medicine Valley. With such good fortune, foundation establishment is as good as certain, making a solid foundation for your path of immortal cultivation." Foundation establishment. The descendants of the Chuanyue family immediately brightened up, their breathing quickening. Chuanyue quickly saluted the male cultivator and inquired about the situation in the Third Medicine Valley. The male cultivator gave a rough introduction, mentioning thousands of servant disciples, countless medicinal herbs, and the high-ranking members of the supreme sect that could be seen in the valley every day, among others. The information left Chuanyue dumbstruck. Just who was the person they had just met to have such influence? Unable to contain himself, Chuanyue asked, "Do you know the person we just met?" The male cultivator shook his head with a smile, clapped Chuanyue on the shoulder, and walked away, leaving Chuanyue even more curious and in awe of Guan. The now distant Guan couldn't help but smile wryly to himself. That kid has always loved playing these little tricks back in Medicine Valley. The cultivator who had introduced Chuanyue to the Third Medicine Valley was precisely a disciple who had graduated from there. By now, the number of disciples who had graduated from the Third Medicine Valley and Mystic Valley had reached tens of thousands, which is why Guan often encountered familiar faces. Guan's reputation had also spread far and wide, and considering the number of foundation establishment pills needed by these disciples, who else within the inner and outer sects could supply them? Moreover, over the years, Guan had indeed made no additional demands of the servant disciples, which is what made him admirable. Guan soon arrived at the book collection hall, ready to chat with the book enthusiasts there for a while. 7 days later, the Golden List Grand Tournament officially commenced. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord also represented the Supreme Sect in the battle. With Li Ya unable to return, the Supreme Sect needed the combat strength of a wandering immortal. How the Supreme Sect persuaded the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, Guan did not know. He had not watched at that time and wasn't interested in finding out now. That day, LV Baitin came to find Guan, pulling him who was watching the Golden List combat into the attic. Aside from the new disciples who were curious, many people ignored it as commonplace. Once seated inside the house, LV Baitin, unusually, did not discuss official matters but instead talked about his son, LV Xian. "That kid really is blindly loyal to Li Xiandao. I have no idea what he's thinking. No matter how the Taizong dynasty develops, it remains the world of the Li family. What could he possibly gain?" LV Baitin complained indignantly. Guan was reluctant to comment on their father-son matters. It must be said that LV Baitin and Li Xiandao were similar, both in their actions and their relationships with their sons. Originally, Lia also despised Li Xiandao, while LV Xian still seeks the life of LV Baitin to this day. Guan had no interest in untangling their causality. An outsider's clarity was useless on family matters. Recently, Li Xiandao arranged for him to go to the domain master city of Broken Sea Domain. I'm not sure if it's a blessing or a curse. The establishment of the Broken Sea Domain master city makes me feel like it's targeted against the sword Venerable Fudao, LV Baitin said with concern. Guan inquired, "Why do you think so?" The Great Cold Demon sect appeared long before this domain was established, which means that even though the Holy Court sets the order, it does not manage specific locales. When I put myself in the place of the Holy Court, no matter how I speculate, establishing the Broken Sea Domain seems to be a means of defense, while also investigating the sword Venerable Fudao. In that case, why don't you go to the Heaven-Cutting Axe and ask the sword Venerable Fudao to leave? Nonsense. Don't spout such things in the future. LV Baitin glared and spoke sternly. Guan smiled helplessly. This man was prone to irritation. LV Baitin, following that, brought up Li Lingtian. Over the years, Li Lingtian had gained a great reputation, having previously participated in and topped the Golden List Grand Tournament and the 100 Clans Grand Meeting, creating a bigger sensation than in Hao and LV Xian of years past. To this, Guan had no particular stance. With Li Lingxian's return to the Taizong continent, It was obvious he was targeting Yang Jian. Guan found it hard to take an interest in the squabbles of the younger generations. What he cared more about was the identity of the mysterious great cultivator who had arrived at the Supreme Sect that day. Chapter 324 Heaven Sect, Immortal King Legend. After LV Bayin left, Guan followed down the staircase, continuing to watch the excitement. Now, the Mystic Heart Realm combat was underway, its spectacle reflected upon the sky, inciting copious discussions among the disciples in the valley. How formidable! Is this what the Mystic Heart Realm is like? What's this? Just wait until you see the Mahayana Realm combat. That is truly thrilling, not to mention the Immortal combat. Even here within the valley, you can feel a sense of oppression. It's an eye-opener. I wonder if we'll ever reach this stage? How could we not? Cultivate diligently, enter the third Medicine Valley, and your starting point will already be higher than 90% of the disciples. That's right. Even if one is a scion of a noble family, without sufficient aptitude, they start as servant disciples too. Do you know about Li Ye from Divine Exotic City? He's my master's junior brother, and they entered the Medicine Valley on the same day. I know. My master once said that Li Ye often used to cry, feeling hopeless about his future. It was my master who inspired him. As the disciples conversed, their topics began to digress. The third Medicine Valley's replacement of old and new was rapid, with many new disciples joining each year. The number of disciples registered in the valley had already surpassed 1,800. Guan naturally mingled among the groups of disciples without causing a disturbance. They didn't need to stand to greet each other or harbor suspicions, a mood that arose from Guan's amiable manner, which also shaped the disciples' approach to interaction and life. Guan sat beside an Exen and inquired about the previous battles. Before an Exen could reply, Yingning came and sat down on Guan's other side, eagerly jumping into the conversation and briefing him on the situation. Her excitement stemmed from the great cultivators of the Star Sea congregations who also came to participate, including a senior she admired. She believed that this senior could capture first place on the Immortal list. To this, Guan merely smiled. This Immortal list tournament was a gathering of sleeping dragons and crouching tigers, with many who concealed their true cultivation level and identities. Aspiring to the first place was very difficult. The arrival of a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to participate baffled Guan. What was their reasoning? No matter how you looked at it, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma's participation in the Immortal list tournament seemed to devalue their status, and they might even provoke the sword Venerable Fudao, leading to a deadly disaster. Guan couldn't understand. The Immortal Spirit Dynasty sent people, the Holy Court also sent delegates, and now the mysterious divine immortal of wondrous Dharma appeared as well. But what comes is to be accepted. Currently, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma still remained a mysterious presence, seen but never met. The carefree primordial immortal stood as the highest entity the immortal cultivation sects could reach. As for the Tao Void mysterious immortal, who existed one realm higher, Guan had not yet encountered any. An Exen thought that the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord could win first place, sparking a debate with Yu Yingning. Given Nzin's temperament, she naturally could not out-argue Yu Yingning. Guan couldn't just watch his precious disciple get pushed around, so he joined the debate, quickly causing Yu Yingning's face to flush red. 2 days swiftly passed by. On this day, in the early morning hours, although dawn had just broken, many figures were already bustling about in the city. Within a narrow alley, Xianxia from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty stopped in his tracks. Tilting his head slightly, he glanced askew at the person behind him. "Why do you follow me?" Xianxia asked calmly. Standing behind him was a white-haired old man, exuding an air of immortality. His mere presence compelled the passing cultivators at the alleyway entrance to take another look. The white-haired elder stared at Xianxia and inquired, "Why has one from the Immortal Dynasty come to this place?" Xianxia turned to face the elder, his expression indifferent as he countered, "If you do not answer, how shall I?" The elder replied, "You may call me Heaven Sect." Heaven Sect. Zhang Xianwang's face paled, a look of incredulity spreading across it as he exclaimed, "Heaven Sect? How is that possible? 50,000 years ago, had you not already? Heaven Sect interrupted. It's your turn to answer now. Zhang Xianwang's gaze flickered. He remained silent for a moment. You probably don't want to cause a conflict here. Surely there are holy court cultivators within the Supreme Sect. The emotionless tone of Heaven Sect sent chills down one's spine. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Xianwang said, I'm here to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao. And you? Heaven Sect replied, I come for an old acquaintance. An old acquaintance? Since our purposes do not conflict, let's not disturb each other any further. Having said that, Heaven Sect turned to leave. Just then, a voice called out, Taoist friend Zhang, what brings you here? The speaker was none other than Guan, approaching Heaven Sect head-on, the two passing each other. Heaven Sect, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm 7th Layer 789023/1700000/1750000, a formidable old monster who has lived for 788,000 years. On the 7th layer of the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm, that's frightening, almost catching up to me. Guan thought to himself as he looked at Zhang Xianwang, his face breaking into a surprised smile. Seeing Guan, Zhang Xianwang couldn't help but smile. After Heaven Sect left the alley, Guan then asked, Who was that person just now? Were they troubling you? Do you need me to contact the Deacon Hall? Hearing this made Zhang Xianwang smile even more. He laughingly said, No trouble at all. But do you know what his cultivation level is? What cultivation level? Divinity Transformation Realm? Void Crossing Realm? Or Unification? As he continued, Guan's voice rose several notches in apprehension. Zhang Xianwang, bemused, changed the subject. What brings you here? Guan responded, I came to purchase seeds for medicinal herbs. And you? The two began to chat, and Zhang Xianwang, favorably impressed by Guan, did not fuss about their disparity in cultivation level and conversed as equals. After a while, Guan asked, You seem quite impressive. Did you sign up for the Immortal List tournament? No, I'm here for a different matter. May I help you with it? There's no need for that. All right then, I won't disturb you any further. Guan bowed in farewell, then departed. Zhang Xianwang watched him go, a hint of hesitation in his heart. Guan pondered why Zhang Xianwang sought to recruit him. He had previously thought the Immortal Spirit Dynasty was rather xenophobic and unlikely to be recruiting him into their ranks, meaning it must be some other scheming. After leaving the alley, Guan continued wandering about the city, planning to buy some interesting trinkets for Tianyao to lift her spirits. Managing the Outer World cave was quite taxing. Guan had to show favor to keep her from feeling disheartened. Just after passing 2 streets, Guan spotted Heaven Sect. As they were about to pass by each other, Heaven Sect suddenly raised a hand and held onto Guan's shoulder. Guan quirked an eyebrow, feeling uneasy about being touched on the shoulder. He turned his head toward Heaven Sect, asking in surprise, Are you the same person from before? Heaven Sect's eyes were fixed on the Immortal King crown on Guan's forehead, his gaze piercing. Guan felt his heart drop. Could it be that this person saw through the disguise of the Immortal King crown? Leave the Supreme Sect tonight, and I will find you, offering you a chance for rebirth anew. With these words, Heaven Sect turned and walked away. Guan was confused. From Heaven Sect's statement, it seemed that he hadn't guessed that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao. But what was the reason then? As Guan watched him leave, continuing on his way, he pondered the matter. Not far away, within the crowd, Zhang Xianwang frowned and ultimately sighed, heading in the opposite direction from Heaven Sect. The afternoon's combat had reached its pinnacle with 2 Nirvana Realm great cultivators clashing, one of whom was from the Supreme Sect. Naturally, both hailed from the Ocean Cultivators. The 2 Nirvana Realm great cultivators employed spells, divine skills, demon pets, formations, and various other arts, comprehensively displaying to the spectators what it meant to be an immortal cultivator. Within the same realm, the higher one's level, the harder it was to slay the opponent, easily leading to a prolonged fierce battle. Guan found it highly entertaining. These individuals' cultivation levels were average, but their variety in battle was impressive. Guwen, who could only defeat enemies instantly, couldn't experience this kind of thrill and could only feel envious. Until the night descended, Guwen left Mystic Valley alone, flying towards the distance. His furrowed brow and tense demeanor were acted out deliberately. To demonstrate resolve, he sped up his flight. An hour later, Guwen felt a surge of mana approaching and immediately prepared himself, yielding to the other's intention. At first glance, he seemed to plummet suddenly, landing in a forest. Once on the ground, he quickly stood up, pretending to be panicked. When he saw Heaven Sect's figure, he finally calmed down. Heaven Sect emerged from the darkness, speaking admiringly, "You are courageous indeed. It's no wonder you dared to accept the Immortal King crown. Though I do not know why it has not devoured you, regardless, you have received the recognition of an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Do you have a master?" Guwen shook his head. "I don't. Is the Immortal King crown the diadem on my head? I just stumbled upon it somewhere." He had already altered his own causality, so even Heaven Sect would be misled. Certainly, Heaven Sect had deduced through causality that Guwen bought the Immortal King crown at a bargain price from a treasure pavilion. At that time, the crown seemed freshly unearthed and antiquated. How could a divine immortal of wondrous dharma see through the trickeries of a Tao void mysterious immortal? Do you wish to learn about the origins of the Immortal King crown? Once you know, you will not be able to maintain a life of tranquility, Heaven Sect said to Guwen, his voice soft. Guwen replied with a wry smile, "Can I go back now?" "No, once you have come, there is no turning back." "Then why do you ask?" "The way of Heaven Sect is the heavenly Tao, and the heavenly Tao must comply with the will of the people. Does this count?" "You came, so it counts." Guwen felt that this person was being unreasonable, but since he sensed no hostility from Heaven Sect, he decided to listen to what was to be said. Tending to plants and occasionally craving some excitement wasn't too bad. He dared to face thrills also because Heaven Sect posed no threat to him. The Immortal King crown was forged by the first Immortal King of the great heavenly spirit land, who existed during the distant primordial times, when the heavens and earth first parted. Back then, there was no holy court, no heavenly Tao rules in the outer heaven. Heaven Sect's voice filled with a mysterious aura, causing Guwen to glimpse ancient scenes. The vast earth stretched out, and colossal beasts roamed freely. There were no systems, no sects, no dynasties. He saw the silhouette of the Immortal King, blurred yet emanating a terrifying presence that reminded him of Long Zhan. This indicated that the Immortal King stood on the same level as Long Zhan, the 9th level of Immortal Path. When the Immortal King declared, "I am the Immortal King," thunder roared, and the land was stricken by various natural disasters. Thinking too highly of himself, the Immortal King sought to challenge the heavenly Tao, striving to unify all creation, to venture into the outer heaven, and in doing so, offended the will of the heavens. He was ultimately afflicted by the curse of the heavenly Tao and, upon his impending death, sealed his own Tao within the Immortal King crown. The Immortal King crown is also the first ever Immortal Path Supreme Treasure in recorded history. At the very least, it is the first within the great heavenly spirit land. Heaven Sect's tone remained emotionless. Chapter 325 Heavenly Tao Inheritance. The First Immortal King, the First Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Guwen had felt a power from the Immortal King that transcended the epics, a mighty will that challenged the heavenly Tao. Heaven Sect continued to watch over Guwen and spoke further. Ever since the fall of the Immortal King, the world was submerged by the oceans, ushering in an era of decline. But from destruction comes creation, and even in the most perilous environments, new beings are nurtured. Over the long epochs, many have emulated the Immortal King. The title he bestowed upon himself also became a glory pursued by later generations of cultivators, continually producing new immortal kings who challenged the authority of heavens and gradually increased the heavenly restraints imposed on this world. Epochs change, and seas turn into mulberry fields. It wasn't until the birth of the Holy Court that beings finally had the chance to set foot in outer heaven. I inherited the legacy of Heaven Sect and took on its name. Heaven Sect can only be transmitted singularly, and I want to take you as my disciple, to make you the next heaven sect. By the end of this statement, the sound of the wind in the forest abruptly stopped, and the flora ceased their swaying. Guan widened his eyes and asked incredulously, "Me? Can I really do it? I'm just a mediocre talent." "What does talent matter? Heaven Sect has its own legacy that can help you break free from your shackles. You have been recognized by the Immortal King Crown. There must be something extraordinary about you, either an ancient treasure body or your soul harboring greater power. The Tao patterns on your forehead are the best proof," Heaven Sect stated, his eyes blazing as he gazed at Guan. Guan hesitated. "But I don't understand what being Heaven Sect entails. What are your ideals?" "Heaven Sect is about complying with the heavenly Tao. What you need to do is to follow the heavenly Tao. As long as you adhere to this, you will constantly surpass your limits and might even achieve immortality. If immortality is attainable, why do you want to pass it on to me?" "Because I have regrets and no longer wish to comply with the heavenly Tao." These words from Heaven Sect only added to Guan's confusion. "Are you trying to trap me, or just deceive me?" Seeing through Guan's doubts, Heaven Sect looked up at the bright moon and explained, "I have lived for 780,000 years. In my life, every choice made was in compliance with the heavenly Tao. For the heavenly Tao, I have forsaken my family and dear friends. I have attained immortality and earned a revered holy name, but over time, I also grew regretful. I no longer yearn for immortality, but you probably still desire it." After hearing this, Guan's first thought was to pass on the legacy to those close to him. Heaven Sect continued, "My time is limited. After this Heavenly List conference concludes, I will relinquish the position of Heaven Sect. You have no choice, but you need to spend the remaining time adjusting your Taoist heart." With that, he vanished into the forest. Guan frowned, staying in his spot. "Don't tell anyone else, lest you reveal the fate and bring misfortune upon them." Muttering to himself, Guan scoffed internally, but he indeed felt a mysterious and familiar aura from Heaven Sect, similar to the light layer enveloping the great heavenly spirit land. Could the heavenly Tao really exist? Guan pondered a while in his place before finally leaving. In the following days, several great cultivators made their names known at the Heavenly List Conference, with the most dominant being Heaven Sect, who self-proclaimed the title. Besides that, nobody knew much about his origins. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord also performed strongly, but he lacked the aura of being the foremost. Time flew swiftly. 2 months passed rapidly, and the Heavenly List Conference continued. During this time, Supreme Sect was as lively as a festival every day. On this day, sensing something while reading under a tree, Xianxia looked up and saw an old man with white hair approaching from the valley entrance. "HM? That presence?" Xianxia frowned thoughtfully. Heaven Sect felt his gaze and glanced at him. Their eyes met, and in an instant, Xianxia felt an immense terror, instinctively bowing his head. Heaven Sect withdrew his gaze and proceeded forward. His eyes swept Medicine Valley and soon locked onto Yang Jian, who was interacting with a disciple. Yang Jian, sensing something, turned his head and instinctively frowned when he saw Heaven Sect. This newcomer was no ordinary figure. Yang Jian, already at the Void Crossing realm, had sharper senses than others at his level. From the first glance at Heaven Sect, he knew he was no match for the other. He wasn't panicked, for his master was still within Medicine Valley. Heaven Sect approached Yang Jian, with Xianxia watching him closely, debating whether to intervene. "Mystic Gang Dominator Body, have you felt the thickness of your soul?" Heaven Sect's first question startled Yang Jian. Yang Jian instinctively looked around. "The others can't hear our conversation, nor can they see me, except for that heavenly demon from Bitter Sea Buddha Sect, whom I intentionally allowed to see," Heaven Sect stated emotionlessly. The term, heavenly demon, alarmed Xianxia, who immediately bowed his head. Yang Jian, however, was not distracted by the mention of the heavenly demon. Suppressing his nervousness, he asked, "What exactly do you want?" Heaven Sect raised his right hand, revealing a golden jade stone in his palm, and said, "This object is for you. Just crush it, and you will recall past life memories, regaining your true identity. You have reincarnated 100 times. It's rare for someone to help you awaken the mystic gang dominator body. You might not get such a chance in future reincarnations. Yang Jian instinctively caught the golden jade stone, pressing further. Who are you really? What do you want? We fought side by side before. I was severely injured, and you perished along with your path. I would never harm you. Once you awaken your past memories, I will appear, said Heaven Sect before turning to leave. Yang Jian looked at the golden jade stone in his hand, his mind in turmoil. Past life? Having read Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West, he naturally believed in reincarnation, but now that it directly affected him, he couldn't help but feel unsettled. He took a deep breath, looked up, and saw Heaven Sect heading towards his master's attic. He wondered if his master had noticed this person's approach. Previously, he believed his master was invincible, but Heaven Sect's methods were beyond his comprehension. Except for him and Xianxia, no one in the valley could see his movements. What kind of divine skill was this? Yang Jian couldn't understand, and his wariness of Heaven Sect piqued. He hesitated whether to warn his master, fearing he might ruin his master's plans if he had already noticed. After considering, he used his divine sense to follow. When his divine sense reached the attic, Guan showed no reaction, which reassured him, and he withdrew his divine sense. Heaven Sect reached the attic. Stepping into the first-floor room, he muttered to himself, "Reincarnation Path Emperor? Great karmic bonds, untouchable. I didn't expect this place to have so many significant karmic bonds. Could Sword Venerable Fudao be nearby?" He then ascended the stairs. Walking through the door, Heaven Sect appeared before Guan, who was at his desk, and then revealed his true form. His gaze fell on the supreme secret records in Guan's hand. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. He suddenly regretted choosing Guan. But by now, he had no other options. Ahem! Heaven Sect feigned a cough, causing Guan to instinctively look up, and then he stood up abruptly as though he had seen a ghost. "You? How did you appear?" Guan asked fearfully. Heaven Sect replied irritably, "You are soon to be the next Heaven Sect, destined to wield the heavenly will. Stop reading books that corrupt the mind." Guan closed the supreme secret records, explaining, "This book is different." "Enough." Heaven Sect cut him off, his gaze returning to the Immortal King Crown. "You roam around wearing the Immortal King Crown all day, aren't you afraid of trouble? Not everyone is like me, without greed for Immortal Path supreme treasures, especially since the Immortal King Crown is special, being one of the rare treasures not bound by the chi fortune of the Holy Court." "The Holy Court manipulates? What do you mean?" Guan asked, puzzled. Considering that nearly all Immortal Path supreme treasures were presented by the Holy Court to help various congregations better manage the populace, Guan had obtained the Seven Stars Mirror from the Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and the Star Sea congregations also had their own supreme treasure. Yet almost no one attempted to steal their supreme treasures, indicating that some powerful force was balancing the greed of the great powers. Heaven Sect explained, "The vast majority of supreme treasures in the world are dispatched by the Holy Court, aiding the various sects in governing the populace. Of course, some treasures aren't under their control, and your Immortal King Crown is one such example. The Holy Court can trace all supreme treasures linked to chi fortune, which is why they are more wary of those they can't control. If someone discovers your Immortal King Crown, you're in major trouble, and even the chi fortune of Heaven Sect can't protect you." Guan thought, "I have another supreme treasure in my possession, and you haven't recognized it either." Chapter 326, Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court. Heaven Sect lectured Guan at length, telling him how to act in the future and what pitfalls to avoid, as if imparting his last words. Despite thinking to himself, "I, a divine thought true immortal, will not acknowledge you as my master," Guan considered retaining Heaven Sect's legacy since Heaven Sect was determined to abdicate his position and had decided to search for a successor on his behalf. Before leaving, Heaven Sect said, "Though there are many secrets about you that puzzle me, I have no desire to understand them anymore. Your disciple named Yang Jian, let him leave when he wishes to, do not stop him, for he will bring you great trouble." Guan nodded, planning to dismiss him first. Heaven Sect raised his right hand, a chi sphere formed in his palm and he threw it at Guan. With no time to dodge, Guwen could only watch as the chi sphere entered his body, causing him to stiffen. Heaven's sect looked at Guwen, a smile appearing as he said, "It's a pity I didn't formally accept you as my disciple. It's better this way to avoid my karma affecting you." With that, he turned and left, his figure passing directly through the door. Feeling his presence disappear, the color of panic finally vanished from Guwen's face. "Accept me as a disciple? Sorry, I am more afraid of getting involved in your karma." Guwen touched his chest, extracting the chi sphere. He could feel the powerful force inside, no weaker than Heaven's sects, and its chi fortune was something he currently couldn't fathom. Precisely because of this, he couldn't merge with the chi sphere. Let's call it Heaven's sects chi fortune. Guwen took out the 7 stars mirror and channeled the Heaven's sects chi fortune into it. When he first obtained the 7 stars mirror, Guwen had erased all the chi fortune, karma, and related restriction inside it. He treated not only Immortal Path Supreme treasures with such thoroughness but also any magic artifact. To avoid any accidents, he checked it again. Once sure there were no issues, he tucked the 7 stars mirror into his pocket and then sat down to continue reading. The grand ranking competition was still ongoing. As of today, the combatants were all immortal beings, unlike Leia who relied on Immortal Path Supreme treasures from lower realms. Thus each combat was a testament to cultivation levels. When Heaven's sect broke into the top 10, he announced his withdrawal from the competition and then left. His departure destined to leave a lingering question in the grand ranking competition. No matter who won first place, they could not be considered the true victor of the competition in the minds of the people below. Heaven's sect was the most dominant presence in this grand ranking competition, unequivocally. Guwen and Yang Jian tacitly did not mention Heaven's sect and continued their cultivation as usual. Guwen trained Yang Jian, not hoping he would serve him for life. When he saw through the karma of Yang Jian's past life, he was already prepared to let Yang Jian go. He even looked forward to seeing what impact Yang Jian would make on the world after he emerged magnificently. By the end of summer, the grand ranking competition concluded, and Nine-Fingered Divine Lord representing the Supreme Sect won the first-place seat. Carefree primordial immortal Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty did not participate. He lingered in the Supreme Sect, searching for Sword Venerable Fudao. Clearly wary of Holy Court, he acted very cautiously and dared not reveal his identity. After the grand ranking competition ended, Zhang Xianwang still did not leave. Until one night in early autumn. Zhang Xianwang was reading in his own room, with more than a dozen books about Sword Venerable Fudao spread out on the table. A cold breeze stirred the oil lamp on the table. Zhang Xianwang's eyes flickered, instinctively looking to the side. Immediately after, his pupils contracted sharply as he abruptly stood up. He saw a figure shrouded in purple demonic chi, his face's shock quickly turning to joy. The newcomer was Guwen. His 9 extremes yin-yang body had advanced to the extreme path transforming form, allowing him to change into various forms, and even without transformation, he could avoid karma calculation by using the extreme path transforming form. However, the image of Sword Venerable Fudao was too deeply ingrained, and he had to meet people in this guise. "Why are you looking for me?" Guwen spoke, his voice hoarse, prompting Zhang Xianwang to imagine a face weathered by the vicissitudes of life. Zhang Xianwang promptly bowed, then introduced himself. He came from the Immortal Dynasty, sent by the master of the Immortal Dynasty, Yang Xian Emperor, to request Sword Venerable Fudao to take action on a matter. He did not immediately mention what it was but instead asked Guwen's impression of the Holy Court. It upholds the great righteousness of protecting the mortals, yet shows disdain for mortal spirits with its pride. It has its good and bad sides. Are the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court at odds? Guwen asked nonchalantly. Zhang Xianwang took a deep breath and said, "It's not that we are at odds with the Holy Court, but rather that the Holy Court has always wanted to eliminate us, to make the great heavenly spirit land entirely theirs. The master of Holy Court, Xianxia, comes from outer heaven and established the Holy Court in this land. The top hierarchy of the Holy Court mostly shares a similar origin with him, while the Immortal Dynasty is a gathering of native immortal beings from the great heavenly spirit land, evolving over generations to form the Immortal Dynasty. This was the first Guan had heard of such matters. If that's the case, wouldn't I who don't belong to the Immortal dynasty be deemed an enemy? Guan asked. It was important to consider right and wrong based on one's stance. If the stances were different, he didn't understand why the Immortal dynasty would still seek him out. Zhang Xianwang hurriedly explained, it's not just the Immortal dynasty that belongs to native beings of the great heavenly spirit land, all beings below heaven are so. It's just that the current beings only recognize the Holy Court. So, what then? You guys wouldn't want me to go against Holy Court, right? Guan countered. Senior, you refuse to accept Qi fortune and status, and you conceal your real identity. The only thing you could fear is the Holy Court. If you cooperate with the Immortal dynasty, we will fulfill any needs you have. However, before that, we hope you can infiltrate Holy Court to rescue someone for us, someone who is not from the Immortal dynasty but has been beneficial to us, Zhang Xianwang earnestly said. He was about to introduce this person when Guan suddenly interrupted, No need to continue, I refuse. It does not matter who rules the world, nor do I wish to get involved in your grievances. If that's the matter, then please leave. He'd have to be full to do the Immortal dynasty's bidding. Not to mention whether Zhang Xianwang's words were true, even if they were, he wouldn't agree. Currently, only the great Nether Saint King from Holy Court bore a grudge against him. He had no reason to position himself against Holy Court. Moreover, the Immortal dynasty clearly felt inferior and thought they couldn't overcome Holy Court. He had no desire to be their pawn. Senior, Zhang Xianwang still wanted to persuade, but a terrifying force enveloped him, making him fall silent and tremble. This carefree primordial immortal appeared quite embarrassed now. Leave the supreme sect. Do not disturb my secluded cultivation. I do not wish to be an enemy of any force, but if someone forces me, I won't hesitate to visit their Taoist tradition. Before his words fully faded, Guan disappeared from the spot, leaving Zhang Xianwang in the room, his face changing expressions. He originally thought Sword Venerable Fudao was concealing his name because he feared Holy Court. He didn't expect that what Sword Venerable Fudao feared was the entire world. Are there really such ascetic cultivators in the world with such a temperament? Meanwhile, Guan returned to the 8 scenic caves. Had he not been favorably impressed by Zhang Xianwang, Guan wouldn't have met him at all. Had Zhang persisted unreasoningly and kept pushing, Guan wouldn't hesitate to annihilate him. He continued his artifact refining, which had been delayed for several months due to the grand ranking competition. Now he needed to pick it back up. His goal was to create his own Immortal Path Supreme Treasure when he reached the 9th level of Immortal. What kind of Immortal Path Supreme Treasure would be worthy of him? He constantly pondered this question. As dawn broke, Guan felt Zhang Xianwang's presence departing, bringing a smile to his face. He hoped Zhang Xianwang could convey the signal that Guan had released to the Immortal dynasty. He didn't want further conflicts with the Immortal dynasty. Standing up, he tidied up before leaving the 8 scenic caves. After the grand ranking competition ended, new disciple numbers in the Supreme Sect surged, even attracting high cultivation level cultivators to join. The Supreme Sect once again began expanding the sect. It recruited many servant disciples to labor, offering generous compensation. Gu's 3rd Medicine Valley remained unaffected because he offered even higher treatment to the servant disciples. 10 years passed, and the number of disciples in 3rd Medicine Valley broke 2,000. This year, the Supreme Sect agreed to expand 3rd Medicine Valley. Guan stood on a mountaintop, watching his busy disciples, his face filled with a smile. The expansion of Medicine Valley helped increase his lifespan income. Naturally, his mood was excellent. A figure approached from behind him. It was Yang Jian. Yang Jian had grown more composed and his brow bore a vigorous look. Master, Yang Jian approached Guan and respectfully bowed. Guan did not turn around but gazed into the distance, asking, Have you decided? Taking a deep breath, Yang Jian replied, I have decided. I carry too much karma. First it was Impermanence Tian, and now Heaven Sect. As my cultivation level continues to rise, the problems will only increase in the future. I don't want to cause trouble for you and Medicine Valley. Also, I wish to venture out alone to cultivate my heart and seek Tao. Guwen turned around, looked at him, and softly laughed. You truly have grown up. Go then, it's time for you to be on your own. Hearing Guwen consenting, Yang Jian sighed with relief, his face showing happiness as he solemnly nodded. Leave today and don't say goodbye to anyone else. Guwen waved his hand. Stunned, Yang Jian could only nod. As he turned to leave, he couldn't help but ask, Master, who exactly is my senior brother? You've already chosen another path, don't ask further. After leaving Third Medicine Valley, do not mention my name or reveal my existence, or else. Guwen's back faced Yang Jian as he spoke in a calm tone. He didn't complete his sentence, but he believed Yang Jian understood. Yang Jian took a deep breath, knelt again, and bowed deeply to Guwen. Then Yang Jian left. Guwen watched the sky, his gaze profound. He was not afraid of Yang Jian exposing him. Currently, as Sword Venerable, he displayed the cultivation level of Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma. Who could guess his cultivation had reached Divine Thought True Immortal? Moreover, Yang Jian himself had a significant background. It was better that he left to follow his own path. The child has grown up and ultimately wants to soar high. Guwen sighed, then shook his head with a wry smile, turning to walk down the mountain. When he reached the base, he saw an Exen chasing the white spirit rat. The corners of his mouth curved upwards. At least this disciple was still here. Now that Yang Jian had left, it was time to focus on training an Exen. Although An Zin's talents were ordinary, if he diligently cultivated, he might surpass An Hao and Yang Jian, for Guwen himself was growing at a much faster rate. Chapter 327. An Zin's surprise. Late at night, an Exen knocked on Guwen's room door, and with a wave of his sleeve, the door opened directly. An Exen stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She approached Guwen's desk, curiously looking at her master. Guwen seldom called for her at this time alone, and she couldn't help but be curious. Guwen caught the disrupted cultivation aura from downstairs and spoke. Yang Jian has left to gain experience. How about I teach you cultivation techniques myself from now on? An Exen was taken aback and asked, Haven't you always been teaching me? Guwen chuckled. Previously, I only assisted you in energy absorption, but now I will truly help you become stronger. After hearing this, an Exen smiled brightly. If Master is willing to teach, naturally I have no objections, as long as you don't despise me for my lack of insight. Don't worry. Guwen offered reassurance, then began to talk about affairs within Medicine Valley. The cultivation aura downstairs returned to normal and remained undisturbed throughout. After chit-chatting for a while, Guwen let an Exen leave. Then he left the Third Medicine Valley, heading towards Mystic Valley. Arriving in Mystic Valley, he stepped into the Nianchu cave, preparing to spend the night with Tian Yaoer and her 3 demons. In a bright and magnificent hall, rows of figures stood, forming 4 long lines, neat and orderly, with the 2 middle rows spaced wide apart to create a broad aisle. A rainbow light flew into the hall, swiftly condensing into the form of Zhang Xianwang. Zhang Xianwang quickly strode forward, reaching the steps, where he bowed in greeting and looked up to see a towering figure seated on a golden throne, the back of which was made of overlapping golden weapons, like an unfurled fan. The towering figure donned a red dragon robe and a dragon crown with hanging beads, surrounded by whirling blood-colored dragon chi, as if encircled by dragons. His visage was majestic, eyes seemingly containing a sea of stars, piercing and profound. This person was none other than the ruler of the Immortal dynasty, the Yang Xian Emperor. After Zhang Xianwang recounted his mission's details, the hall erupted with discussion among the immortal spirits. This sword Venerable Fudao dares to show no respect to us, arrogant. He indeed has that right, after all. He dared to refuse the divine position offered by the Holy Court. It seems he is one of those ascetics who wishes to stay away from conflicts. The world is complex, and one can't simply hide whenever they wish. The Holy Court will certainly be suspicious of him. Now that the Holy Minister dominates the court, we need not lift a finger. He alone can provoke Sword Venerable Fudao into action, considering that the great Nether Saint King is his lackey. Once Zhang Xianwang concluded his report, the discussions in the hall turned raucous. Ignoring the surrounding noise, Zhang Xianwang's gaze was fixed on the Yang Xian Emperor, awaiting his judgment. The Xianxia Emperor slowly asked, "From what you've seen, is what he spoke the truth?" Silence fell over the hall upon his words. Hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xianwang replied, "Based on what I know of the Supreme Sect, his actions are indeed consistent with his character. He only strikes to defend against external threats to the Supreme Sect, never due to personal vendettas. At least, no one knows of any, and even the Hall of Elders seems unaware of Sword Venerable Fudeo's true identity." The Xianxia Emperor listened and narrowed his eyes. No one dared interrupt his contemplation. After a while, the Xianxia Emperor spoke, "In that case, let's not disturb him any further." "Yes," Zhang Xianwang replied, relieved. Although the actual realm of Sword Venerable Fudao was unclear, the mere fact that he could effortlessly crush the great cold demon sect meant he was at least at the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. If his realm exceeded that, he would be even more dangerous to provoke. Unable to ally, it was also needless to make an enemy. Zhang Xianwang then added, "During this mission, I also encountered someone from Heaven Sect, who went to the Supreme Sect looking for someone. It's likely that the reincarnation of the great Nether Saint King is hidden within the Supreme Sect." "Heaven Sect? Seems like the Holy Court is in for more trouble," commented the Xianxia Emperor, his tone playful. Zhang Xianwang shared this sentiment. He asked, "If trouble does break out, do we need to intervene?" The Xianxia Emperor snorted, "Intervene in what?" With the arrogant nature of Heaven Sect and the great Nether Saint King, they didn't need our help in the past. Naturally, we should not offer it now. They underestimated Xianxia's benevolence. Without Xiantian, the Holy Court would only become the greatest terror in the world. Zhang Xianwang fell silent, reflecting on the majesty of Heaven's sect, and sighed. The other immortal spirits in the hall began reminiscing about the past, and regarding the fortunes of Heaven's sect and the great Nether Saint King, they were mostly schadenfreude. The autumn wind blew through the woods as the blood prison great saint lay on the ground, pondering deeply as he watched an Exen practice. Guan sat nearby, reading a book, occasionally shifting his position. The blood prison great saint turned to Guan and asked, "Master, she has been meditating for 5 ancient hours. Does she have a talent that I am unable to see through?" Back then he could not see through Yang Jian, and now, faced with Nzin's transformation, he began to doubt himself. As Guan turned the page, he responded, "There aren't so many extraordinary geniuses in the world. I merely wanted her to achieve path enlightenment." The blood prison great saint's eyes widened, shocked. He had not given it much thought when Guan asked Zhuo Yijian to seek path enlightenment, as Zhuo Yijian already had remarkable achievement in the Sword Dao. But an Exen was different. She was just an inexperienced girl, lacking the demeanor and potential of a powerful being. Could someone so ordinary really be transformed? The blood prison great saint suddenly felt that Yang Jian's current fate was perhaps truly shaped by his master's defiance of the heavens. His heart ignited with excitement. How could one not achieve greatness following such an entity? If Yang Jian comes back and sees an Exen surpassing him, that would be interesting. The blood prison great saint entertained this thought, suddenly feeling that Guan might actually have nurtured an Exen intensively for this very reason. Poor Yang Jian. Nevertheless, it proved that the blood prison great saint's choice was correct, and his mood became even more joyful. Unbeknownst to Guan, the blood prison great saint had conjured up so much in his mind. While he appeared to be reading, he was actually watching over Yang Jian as he ventured to the sea. He saw Heaven's sect tracking Yang Jian, and apart from them, no one else was watching him, which meant that the great Nether Saint King had not yet realized Yang Jian's identity. This indicated that no trouble would come his way for the time being. After a while, Gu and his divine sense traveled to outer heaven, where a carefree primordial immortal was engaged in combat. Quite a rare sight. The adversaries were clearly mortal enemies, striking fiercely, shaking the void. Gu sensed many great cultivators secretly watching the battle, with various divine senses weaving through each other, making him muse that great heaven and earth was indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. As evening approached, Guan finally withdrew the divine sense that had been focused on an Exen, bringing her back to awareness. An Exen slowly opened her eyes to find 2 new cultivation techniques in her mind. heaven and earth primordial skill, and all things form and energy art. Though these techniques were already enhanced by Guan, they were enough for an Xian to ponder for a lifetime. Heaven and earth primordial skill was the foundation of her cultivation, while all things form and energy art could conceal her cultivation level, both complementing the primordial reincarnation skill. Once she regained her composure, a look of shock flashed across her face. So profound. Instinctively, an Xian looked towards Guan, her eyes filled with surprise, confusion, unease, and joy. She cautiously asked, "Master, was it because of you last time too?" Guan, with a book in hand, nodded lightly. "How does it feel?" "Good, but..." An Xian stopped mid-sentence, hesitant to ask a lingering question, afraid of offending Guan. How could Master be so powerful? Could Master be an immortal? Guan calmly said, "From now on, I will teach you cultivation in private, and you mustn't tell anyone." For some reason, upon hearing these words, An Zin's heart quivered. It sounded so familiar. A figure from deep within her memory emerged, coincidentally overlapping with Guan at this moment. Could it be impossible? Wasn't Master just a little over 300 years old? How could he be so formidable? Guan put away his book, looking at an Xian. "The identity of Supreme Sects Guan is indeed my disguise. You guessed it right, I am him. From the very beginning, you've only had me as your master." With these words, an Xian immediately stood up, her eyes welling up and her body trembling uncontrollably. "Master." Overwhelmed by emotions, an Xian burst into Guan's arms and began to sob uncontrollably. Guan, helpless, said, "Why are you crying? You're making it seem like we haven't seen each other in ages, and I haven't mistreated you these years, have I?" An Xian buried her head in his chest, sobbing, "I haven't been mistreated. I never expected that, after all these years, what I've wanted most is actually happening. I'm so foolish. How could there be two people in this world who are so good to me? Master, I've missed you so much." The blood prison great saint was utterly confused. Weren't these two just master and disciple? Why the emotional reunion? Guan patted An Zin's back. "Let go of your master, you're grown up now. Don't let others see this." An Xian released Guan and then knelt on the ground to wipe her tears, her face radiating with a smile. "So, Master, you tricked us. If my senior brother knew you were our master, he would probably be devastated. Wait, does that mean you knew him because you were looking out for him back then?" An Xian asked wide-eyed, her shift from formality to familiarity not out of disrespect, but because the master who saved her and led her on the immortal cultivation path was like a father to her. In front of her father, she had no apprehensions. Guan said, "You could say that. However, our relationship should stay as it appears on the surface, and don't tell your senior brother." An Xian immediately nodded, her eyes still red, but now she was excited. Suddenly, she glanced at the blood prison great saint, hesitated, and said, "Master, but he heard us." The blood prison great saint bristled. "What do you mean, behind my back? I am the master's most trusted mount, even closer than you disciples." Guan smiled. "Don't underestimate him. Bull Demon King, feel free to share your story with her." With that, the blood prison great saint stood tall, filled with pride, and began to reveal his true identity. Sender, Mayana realm. Just those two aspects were enough to shock an Xian, her mouth agape, and as for the long list of titles that followed, she had already tuned out. She turned back to Guan and asked, "Master, does that mean Yang Jian is really my junior brother? What is his cultivation level now?" Chapter 328. Master, what realm are you exactly? He has already reached the void-crossing realm in terms of cultivation level, Guan replied offhandedly, as if he was talking about a trivial matter of no importance. An Xian was shocked once again, her mouth agape and hands involuntarily covering her face, seemingly unable to accept this reality. She and Anhao had started cultivating on the same day and knew all too well how extraordinary Anhao's pace of cultivation was. Precisely because of this, she was very clear that Yang Jian's progress was no less sensational than Anhao's. She had watched Yang Jian enter the valley, watched him grow up. In the beginning, how mediocre Yang Jian had been, Yet he had grown so rapidly right under her nose. It was simply outrageous. Suddenly, an Exen didn't know what to say. Guwen looked at her and smiled. Keep cultivating well, strive to surpass those who came before you. An Exen hesitated, but my talent. After all, she had trained under Guwen and, seeing the vast gap between her and Hao, her confidence had long since been worn away. What was in the past was in the past. Had I not let you settle in, how could you have today's temperament? Do you think your senior brother could have had it all smooth sailing? I've intervened for him countless times over the years. He always loves to cause me trouble, Guwen huffed. And Xin was astonished. The master had helped the senior brother before? Why hadn't the senior brother mentioned it? Damn it, he actually kept it hidden from me. And Xin gritted her teeth. She looked at Guwen and asked, then, do I have a chance to surpass my senior brother? Guwen spoke earnestly. That depends on how much determination you are willing to put forth. No one is predestined to be stronger than another. These words completely ignited Nzin's aspirations, as if flames were blazing in her eyes. Blood Prison Great Saint was somewhat displeased. I haven't finished bragging yet. After returning to Third Medicine Valley, an Xin was in an exceptionally good mood, wandering around and greeting everyone she saw. For this senior disciple of the Medicine Valley, all the disciples held great respect. Passing by, Chuanyue asked with a cheerful smile, Senior sister, why are you so happy? An Xin replied with a smile, because the moonlight is beautiful tonight. Chuanyue looked puzzled, but an Xin did not explain, instead brushing past him. On the other side, in a loft, Guwen picked up Green Hero Travelogue and had only been reading for a short while when Ji Xiaoyu came up the stairs and entered the room. Where did you two go during the day? Ji Xiaoyu stared at Guwen and asked. Guwen answered, we went out for cultivation. Really? What can you teach her? Well, I managed to teach Yang Jian, didn't I? Just wait, maybe he'll make a name for himself and shake the world someday. Ji Xiaoyu raised an eyebrow. After a moment of silence, she asked, you wouldn't happen to know Sword Venerable Fudao, would you? Gu and his face changed dramatically, and he exclaimed with shock, how did you know? Really? Truth be told, I am actually a disciple of Sword Venerable Fudao. Heh? What? You don't believe me? Okay then, I am Sword Venerable Fudao. Ji Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at Guwen and said, you're always talking nonsense. Every time I ask about your secrets, you always dodge the question, yet I've shared everything with you. At this point, her tone carried a hint of melancholy. Guwen replied helplessly, my dear sister, I do want to know. Every time you just tell me outright, I listen with trepidation, fearing that your enemy from a former life will come knocking at our door. It's not death I fear, but if the enemy tortures me severely, even if I confess, they might not believe me. As he spoke, Guwen rambled on, causing Ji Xiaoyu to show a look of remorse. From Gu An's perspective, it indeed seemed like a lot of pressure. After Guwen finished speaking, Ji Xiaoyu asked, should I stop telling you from now on? Really? False. I'm still going to tell you. You only live once. I speak to you not because I want to talk about these things. Having said that, Ji Xiaoyu turned and left, leaving behind her solitary silhouette. Guwen laughed to himself. This girl's nature was indeed amusing. Then, he picked up the Green Hero Travelogue from the table and continued reading. Xianxia hadn't published a new book recently, which had allowed some laziness to set in, causing Guwen some dissatisfaction. Find a moment to tap him on the shoulder? Forget it, that's beneath my dignity. Having Shunjun come back to the Jianghu wouldn't be bad either. She has the talent to surpass Xianxia. High up under the blue sky, above the white clouds, Guwen rode the Blood Prison Great Saint with an Xin standing beside him. An Xin, dressed all in white and wearing a white jade mask, was at that moment caressing her mask. Master, where are we going? An Xin turned her head and asked, feeling a powerful force whisking her away, immense and vast. To another branch of your master's sect, Guwen replied. Upon hearing this, an Xin immediately became excited and asked, Master, what realm are you really in? Even Senior Nine Fingers and the others can't see through your disguise. I am slightly higher in cultivation level than the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, Wuxing, and Xianxia, Guan answered ambiguously. Seeing that he was unwilling to reveal more, an Xian didn't press the matter and started to get curious about their destination. A gust of sea breeze blew from the front, prompting an Xian to turn her head. Immediately, her complexion changed drastically. One by one, towering and majestic peaks entered her vision, shocking her very eyes. Guan glanced at her, feeling a sense of emotion. Since they had recognized each other, an Xian seemed to have become a different person, lively as if returning to her youthful days. This indicated that she truly saw Guan as family. With parents present, a child can afford to be willful. Without parents to accompany, one must learn to behave properly. An Xian was like this, which made Guan quite happy. After all, he had watched an Xian grow up, and she had been with him for so many years. In his heart, wasn't an Xian like a daughter? Look at you, acting like you've never seen anything. This is Mortal World Peak, and the master here is the Peak Master of Dingtan Peak. Blood Prison Great Saint said proudly, as if he himself were the Peak Master of Dingtian Peak. An Xian exclaimed in astonishment, Dingtian Peak? I've heard of it. Senior Lu came to attend the Millennial Peak Conference before. So that's how it is, no wonder. Master, if Senior Lu knew it was you taking care of her in secret, with her affection for you, she would probably wish to pledge herself to you right there and then. Guan's handsome face turned red, and he fake coughed, saying, What nonsense are you spouting? How could a girl speak such words? Your master would never become Taoist friends with her. Just so, she isn't worthy? Blood Prison Great Saint chimed in, feeling annoyed with Lu Lingjun, also an ascender, ever since she had called him a stupid cow. An Xian giggled behind her hand and said, I finally understand why the master refuses to accept those female companions. Indeed, there's no need. They would only drag you down. She admired Guan greatly. The master truly gave without expecting anything in return. What woman could resist his charisma? And who would have thought that Sword Venerable Fudao would be a valley master at the Supreme Sect? Such a waste of talent. The master really has patience. An Xian silently vowed to herself to become a great cultivator like her master, hidden amidst the mortal coil, watching over the swirling winds of the world with a smile. If she could truly surpass her senior brother and junior brothers, she would also conceal her cultivation level, watching the two of them vie against each other with a smile. Just by thinking about it, an Xian felt a surge of excitement. At that moment, a vast aura descended, dispersing the sea of clouds and fluttering in Xin's long hair and gown. She looked up, and her eyes instinctively widened. There before her was a green mountain reflection stretching across the sky, larger than all the massive peaks in front of them. Guan remained expressionless. His reason for coming today was for this very item. It was an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure belonging to Mortal World Peak. Chapter 329. Fu Shenxiu, Qingtian Peak. When the azure mountain shadows hung suspended in the sky, disciples from various peaks flew out, looking up at this magnificent scene. Guan did not stop, taking Blood Prison Great Saint and an Xian toward Dingtian Peak. An Xian, feeling the aura of the mountains and cultivators along the way, was secretly astonished, realizing that Mortal World Peak truly was unfathomable, seeing that Senior Lu hadn't spoken falsely. The oppressive force of the azure mountain shadows lingered for a long time, enveloping the entire domain of Mortal World Peak, prompting discussions among the disciples from all peaks. Upon reaching Dingtian Peak, Guan flew toward the mountaintop. Only then did an Xian truly feel the immense size and height of these mountains. Thinking that such a vast mountain belonged to her master, and Xin's gaze toward Guan was filled with admiration. Soon, they arrived at the top of the mountain, and as soon as they landed, Zhu Xinglan, the leading disciple of Dingtian Peak, appeared and came forward to greet Guan with a salute. What's the situation? Guan asked. Zhu Xinglan replied, its main peaks Fu Shenxiu subduing an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. He is the future master of the main peak and the disciple with the strongest talent in 1,000,000 years in Mortal World Peak. There was a complex tone in his voice when he mentioned Fu Shenxiu. Guan looked up at the azure mountain shadow in the sky and laughed. That's quite a commotion. For such a carefree primordial immortal to subdue an immortal path supreme treasure, it seemed to be quite strenuous. It seemed that this immortal path supreme treasure was somewhat special. Zhu Xinglan answered, "This immortal path supreme treasure was found beyond outer heaven by the Peak Master. Without the suppression of Qi fortune from the Holy Court, truly subduing its immortal spirit would raise quite a ruckus, and there have been those who failed before." Guan nodded and then asked about Dingtian Peak's recent situation, learning that there was nothing requiring his intervention. Only then did Guan start walking toward the medicine garden. An Xian and blood prison great saint followed behind him, with Zhu Xinglan accompanying them, yet his gaze occasionally shifted toward the sky, admiring the vast azure mountain shadow. Who wouldn't want to possess an immortal path supreme treasure? It's just that their numbers were limited, and it wasn't something one could have just by wishing for it. While picking medicinal herbs, Guan introduced them to an Xian. The majority of the medicinal herbs here were unheard of by an Xian, so she listened intently and wasn't distracted by the phenomenon in the sky. Zhu Xinglan was inwardly curious about the origins of this girl, feeling that their master treated her differently compared to others. And Xin's mask, crafted by Guan, was inscrutable for Zhu Xinglan, who was at the 9th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm, and he didn't dare probe with his divine sense. An hour later, the vast oppressive force enveloping mortal world peak began to dissolve, and the azure mountain shadow in the sky remained, even becoming more detailed, revealing trees that swayed with the wind, as if they were truly real. "You can go on with your duties, there's no need to follow us." Guan, just stepping out from a section of the medicine garden, turned his head and spoke to Zhu Xinglan, who immediately saluted and then disappeared into thin air. Attracted by the sudden disappearance, an Xian looked at Guan and asked, "Master, what's his cultivation level?" Guan casually replied, "Wandering Immortal Realm, 9 layers." And Xin's pupils, hidden beneath the mask, involuntarily widened. She had heard of Wandering Immortals. The 9-Finger Divine Lord who took first place in the Heavenly Ranking Tournament was a Wandering Immortal. To reach the 9th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm, didn't that mean the person just now might be even stronger than the 9-Finger Divine Lord? Feeling the pressure, an Xian thought of the multitude of disciples at Dingtian Peak, each seemingly an immortal, commanding such formidable power. How could she not feel the pressure, when her master was training her with such focus? At the very least, she couldn't disappoint her master. Master and disciple walked and chatted along the mountain path, with blood prison great saint trailing behind. As the sea breeze blew and they looked out over the entire world, they seemed so insignificant. The azure mountain shadow in the sky began to scatter, and not long after, the sky returned to its original state, resplendently blue. "Master, if you compared that immortal path supreme treasure to Martial Uncle Li Ya's divine exotic city, which would be stronger?" An Xian couldn't help but ask. The strength of divine exotic city left a deep impression on her when Li Ya participated in the Heavenly Ranking Tournament. The strength of an immortal path supreme treasure is related to the user's cultivation level. Li Ya is not yet able to fully unleash divine exotic city's power, Guan answered. The mightiest feature of an immortal path supreme treasure is its eternal indestructibility. Currently, there are many immortal path supreme treasures in the world, all passed down from generation to generation, each symbolizing the lifetime of a 9 heavens of immortal path being. After hearing this, an Xian became even more curious about immortal path supreme treasure. Guan brought her here today to broaden her horizons, to understand the world structure, and to comprehend what an immortal path supreme treasure is. "What's that?" Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly spoke up, and an Xian turned her head to look, seeing a streak of azure light racing from the distant horizon of the sea, stirring up huge waves. A smile appeared on Guan's face. He thought to himself, as expected. The immortal spirit of that immortal path supreme treasure was not simple, which was also the reason Guan came to watch the excitement today. An immortal path supreme treasure from beyond outer heaven implied there was a scheme behind it. That treasure heading straight for Dingtian Peak was probably related to the demon fetus within. As the azure light drew closer, an Xian and blood prison great saints' expressions drastically changed, a feeling of indescribable panic born in their hearts. This panic emerged but vanished in an instant because Guan stepped forward. An Xian and Blood Prison Great Saint subconsciously looked toward Guan. Guan raised his hand to grasp, then clenched his fist, and the distant azure light immediately disappeared. An Xian and Blood Prison Great Saint turned to look but could no longer see the azure light. It was as if the previous sight was just an illusion. Both looked toward Guan's outstretched hand. Unfortunately, Guan's fist remained closed, shielding from their view whatever lay within his palm. A figure descended from the sky and landed at the edge of a cliff, maintaining a distance of 10 steps from Guan. He frowned as he looked at Guan. Fu Xianxia, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm, 5 layers 1684877/75000/250000. Seeing the other's lifespan, Guan felt he indeed deserved the reputation of the #1 talent of mortal world peak. In the future, he might even surpass the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Fu Xianxia asked, "Could it be Senior Meng Lang?" "Meng Lang?" And Zin's gaze turned curious. Guan, on the other hand, laughed and said, "This treasure headed straight for my Dingdun Peak. Could it be considered fated for me?" Fu Xianxia's face drastically changed. After all his troubles, was the treasure taken by someone else? Although he did not attend the Millennium Summit, how could Fu Xianxia not know that a great cultivator had been added to mortal world peak? One capable of eradicating the Elder of Mohen, such a great power was definitely beyond his contend. Moreover, the fact that the other party could easily seize the treasure demonstrated a vast gap between them. For a moment, Fu Xianxia was unsure what to do. His master, Taoist Lord Yongyan, had instructed him to try his best to recruit Meng Lang. That was an immortal path supreme treasure. Furthermore, one with intact restrictions, uncontrolled by the Holy Court, an immortal path supreme treasure. Senior. Fu Xianxia gritted his teeth, wanting to test Guan's attitude. Guan suddenly opened his hand, revealing a tiny azure mountain that glistened faintly with light within his palm. Upon seeing the mountain, Fu Xianxia's gaze was fixed and could not be moved. An Xian and Blood Prison Great Saint, although unclear about the newcomer's realm, could tell that his nature and temperament were extraordinary. Could the little azure mountain in their master's hand be the immortal path supreme treasure? He could seize an immortal path supreme treasure with a mere wave of his hand? And Zin's heart filled with admiration. "If I let go, are you sure you can catch it?" Guan asked with a chuckle. Fu Xianxia hurriedly replied, "I will do my utmost." Immediately, Guan threw the tiny azure mountain into the distance, casually launching it 1,000,000 miles away. Fu Xianxia appeared out of thin air beside the little mountain, his mana swirling around his hand as he reached out to grasp it. Boom! A terrifying momentum suddenly exploded, tossing Fu Xianxia away, and his face grew extremely unsightly. The little mountain turned into an azure beam, once again streaking toward Dingtian Peak. As Fu Xianxia turned around, he saw that the light had vanished. He flew swiftly toward Dingtian Peak, landing again on the edge of the cliff with a complex expression as he looked at Guan. The little mountain once again floated above Guan's palm. That moment, several figures appeared out of nowhere in the air behind Fu Xianxia, all of whom were the authorities of Mortal World Peak. Even the master of the main peak, Taoist Lord Yongyan, had come. Bai Zia's gaze fell on the little mountain in Guan's hand and then shifted to Fu Xianxia, revealing a mocking expression. Guan turned to Taoist Lord Yongyan and laughed. "Peak Master, this treasure kept smashing into my Dingdun Peak. I had no choice but to claim it." Taoist Lord Yongyan seemed to realize something, a hint of understanding crossing his eyes, and then he laughed. "This is Qingnan Peak, sought by one of my juniors in outer heaven. If Taoist friend likes it, I am willing to bestow it upon Taoist friend." Upon hearing this, Fu Xianxia immediately became anxious and looked at Taoist Lord Yongyan, saying, "Master, well then, I will find you another immortal path supreme treasure in the future. You have no fate with this one. It's not reasonable to blame others," Taoist Lord Yongyan said with finality. Although he was only one minor realm higher than Fu Xianxia was raised by him, so facing his decision, Fu Xianxia had no choice but to give up. He took a deep breath, gave Guan a salute, and then turned and left. The other peak masters looked at each other in dismay, each harboring their own thoughts. Taoist Lord Yongnian, looking back at Guan, said, "The treasure indeed has a destiny with Dingtian Peak. I hope Taoist friend can protect Dingtian Peak well." Guan nodded and said, "If Mortal World Peak needs me, I will also take action." Taoist Lord Yongnian's face revealed a smile, and then he took his leave. The other peak masters successively saluted and dispersed. Guan felt a hint of regret. Bai Zia didn't seek him out for a chat. Their relationship seemed to have grown distant. After everyone left, an Exen couldn't help but ask, "Just like that, you obtained an Immortal Path Supreme treasure?" It was her first time seeing her master so assertive. And of course, Sword Venerable Fudao had always been domineering in his actions. Guan was just gentle toward cultivators of lower realms. Blood Prison Great Saint stared intently at Qingtian Peak in Guan's hand, suddenly feeling that he too might one day possess such a treasure. As long as he performed well. Guan proceeded to walk toward the top of the mountain, while he used his divine thought to probe Qingtian Peak in his hand. Qingtian Peak had already fostered an immortal spirit, apparently alive for many years, far more powerful than divine exotic immortal spirit. After all, it was able to break free from the suppression of a carefree primordial immortal. Soon, his divine thought captured a heavenly demon, hidden within the walls of a dilapidated temple within Qingtian Peak, extremely concealed and probably difficult to detect even for the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. "Practice diligently. Once you are strong enough, I will give this treasure for you to use," Guan said to an Exen beside him, who was full of curiosity, smiling gently. Chapter 330. Awakening Really? When an Exen heard Guan's words, she was instantly excited, and the eyes of the Blood Prison Great Saint also turned fiery. Indeed, the master would not be stingy with the treasures of the Immortal Path. After returning to the mountaintop, Guan had an Exen start cultivating while he went back to the house alone. Sitting on his bed, Guan's gaze fell on Qingtian Peak. He first used his divine thought to erase any marks and restrictions within Qingtian Peak that made him wary. The immortal spirit of Qingtian Peak was very submissive and did not resist Guan. Instead, it was quite jubilant. After taking safety precautions, Guan began to make Qingtian Peak recognize him as its master. With the compliance of the Qingtian immortal spirit, it took Guan less than an hour to refine the restrictions of Qingtian Peak and take control of the soul of the Qingtian immortal spirit, making it completely serve him. With the Qingtian immortal spirit in hand, this would be the combat power of a carefree primordial immortal. Moreover, Guan felt that the power contained in Qingtian Peak was greater than the Seven Stars Mirror, the Immortal King Crown, and the Divine Exotic City. The Immortal King Crown and Divine Exotic City had been damaged and needed a long time to recover. The Seven Stars Mirror hadn't suffered much damage but was slightly weaker than Qingtian Peak. However, the difference was limited. After all this, the corners of Guan's mouth curved upward. Next, it was like capturing a turtle in a jar. "Forget it, let me leave him hanging for a while. After all, he can't escape or pass any messages outside." He pretended not to know that a heavenly demon was hidden inside Qingtian Peak, and the Qingtian immortal spirit was completely unaware. During the process of making Qingtian Peak his own, Guan peeked into the memory of the Qingtian immortal spirit. It spent most of its time either asleep or sealed by a strong force, unaware of the filth inside it. Although unaware of the filth inside, the Qingtian immortal spirit was influenced by it. It inexplicably felt something attracting it at Dingtian Peak, thus it crashed towards Dingtian Peak. If Guan had not intervened, it planned to directly smash Dingtian Peak to force the alluring thing to reveal itself. From this perspective, the identity of the demon fetus below is not simple. Guan thought silently. He pondered whether or not to move the demon fetus elsewhere, but where could he move it to? Moving it, if awakened prematurely, wouldn't that accelerate the catastrophe? No matter, let it stay here. As for whether another heavenly demon will come later, he didn't care. He would destroy any heavenly demon with lesser cultivation than his. As for those with higher cultivation than his, if they could infiltrate the great heavenly spirit land, wouldn't the holy court have been penetrated long ago? Gu shrank Qingtian Peak into an accessory and hung it on his belt. His ultimate elusive body was evolved from the practice of the Demon Shadow Divine skill. Its main use now was to block all causality deduction, which also protected Qingtian Peak when it was attached to his body, making it indeducible. It wasn't necessary to activate the ultimate elusive body to block causality deduction. After mastering it, he could block it permanently. In such a case, releasing some causality on the surface could easily misguide others' deductions. The ultimate elusive body also had combat capabilities, allowing his physical soul to become elusive, dodging spells and divine skills, providing infinite uses in battle. Gu stood up, stretched lazily, and loosened his body. Heavenly demons, the holy court. It's really hard to achieve true peace in this world. Gu reflected internally, yet he faced no pressure. There's still much time ahead, take it slow. The conflicts of the moment mean little, who laughs last is what truly matters. As the seasons changed, a new year arrived. Just after the new year, Gu was in the forest instructing an Xian on qi absorption cultivation. The stepping path of Age's step was too profound and enigmatic. Even with Gu's personal guidance, an Xian still found it difficult to master. The current goal for an Xian was to discover the patterns of the stepping path of Age's step. An Xian moved swiftly, appearing 5 steps away in an instant before stumbling and falling to the ground. She sat on the ground, feeling dizzy and shaky, her eyes closed and mouth slightly open, which made Gu want to laugh. He didn't help an Xian regain her composure. This was a necessary path for her. She stayed in that spot for nearly half an hour before fully regaining her senses. Turning to Gu, she gave a bitter smile and said, "Master, this technique is incredibly profound. Do I really need to learn it?" Gu, holding the 7 stars mirror like a fan, chuckled and said, "You must learn it. Just absorbing qi is not enough, and besides, cultivating divine skills will enhance your understanding too." An Xian made a mournful face but didn't give up. Instead, she stood up again, ready to continue practicing the stepping path of Age's step. The thought of the previous dizzy sensation made an Xian want to vomit. She raised her hands, patted her face, and tried not to think about the discomfort. At that moment, she turned her head and saw a golden glow in the sky outside the forest, rapidly stretching out and magnificent like the sunset. Gu also looked up, his expression calm. Is it finally coming? Meanwhile, overseas on an island, Yang Jian and Heaven Sect stood side by side. Yang Jian gazed at his right hand, having just crushed a golden jade stone given by Heaven Sect, with his palm covered by a golden sphere and tiny golden stars scattering into the air. He appeared expressionless, yet he was extremely nervous inside. Merging with his past memories, was he still himself? Heaven Sect looked at him and comfortingly said, "Don't worry, this process won't be painful. I've already set up formations and no one will disturb you." Yang Jian looked up at the sky where the golden glow covered the sky. So beautiful. But this phenomenon. Yang Jian hesitated. Heaven Sect stroked his beard and said, "Don't worry, this phenomenon covers a vast area, and you don't have to worry." Yang Jian took a deep breath and refocused on his palm. Then, the golden stars rising from his palm began to fly toward his face, eventually entering his eyes. The wind picked up on the island as the world's spiritual energy surged towards Yang Jian. The golden light in his palm brightened, illuminating his face while his eyes flickered with different scenes. Seeing this, Heaven Sect smiled, slowly backing away to give Yang Jian space. Elsewhere, inside Supreme Sect, Gu could see the heaven and earth rules enveloping Yang Jian, with yin-yang rules being the most intense. He couldn't understand the process, but he felt that Yang Jian wouldn't encounter any mishap. There was no other soul in that golden jade stone, so there was no risk of soul snatching. "Master, why has the sky changed color?" An Xian curiously asked. "Your fellow disciple is awakening his past memories," Gu said nonchalantly as he gazed at the sky. "Past memories?" An Xian immediately became interested, and Gu did not hide the truth, revealing Yang Jian's causality. Hearing that Yang Jian was the reincarnation of a holy king from the holy court, an Xian was even more shocked. No wonder he's so powerful, master. Could my fellow senior brother also be the reincarnation of a great power? An Xan asked, staring intently at Guan, her eyes apprehensive. Probably not. Gu's answer left an Xian feeling disappointed. If An Hao was a reincarnation of a great figure, that would mean she was not too bad. The problem was her comparison to An Hao. However, everyone might have a past life. Once you reach a certain realm, you will understand, Guan said and then looked away. He stood up and said, "Let's stop here for today." Upon hearing this, Anzin's face revealed a relieved smile. She followed Guan's steps. Master, if Yang Jian awakens his past memories, does that mean he will become the Holy King again? Is the Holy King powerful? What he becomes is up to him to decide. As for the power of a Holy King, let me tell you something. The Great Cold Demon sect previously served a Holy King. A Holy King could command a sect like the Great Cold Demon sect? Don't be overly dramatic. Thinking about it now, having such a powerful Holy King as my junior brother feels like a dream. I'm telling you this, not for you to marvel, but for you to clearly know your own goals. Master, I will practice diligently. With your teachings, what is a Holy King? The master and disciple continued chatting as they returned to the valley. Guan used the power of causality to alter their conversation, so he wasn't worried about exposure. After reaching the divine thought true immortal realm, Guan studied causality and destiny the most and controlled his own power of causality more and more skillfully. Meanwhile, every being in the Broken Sea domain looked up at the heavenly phenomenon. Guan even saw some powerful figures flying out from the Holy Land where the Holy Court was located, rushing towards the Broken Sea domain. Fortunately, Yang Jian was not awakening in the Taizong continent, otherwise the continent would face trouble again. The golden phenomenon lasted a day and a night, and by noon the next day, Shenzhen came to visit Guan. After closing the door, she started setting up a formation and busied herself for a while before coming to sit at the table. Yo, still reading Green Hero Travel? Why not read my Supreme Secret Records? Shenzhen teased. Guan replied, Supreme Secret Records is too short. The implication was, when will you write something new? Shenzhen seemed not to understand. She took out a scroll from her storage bag and spread it out on the table. She had actually drawn the golden phenomenon from yesterday. The golden sky enveloped the land and mountains, showcasing the majestic atmosphere of the immense landscape. Guan noticed that as the scroll was unrolled, the heaven and earth rules gradually drew near. Once again, she used her painting to move the heaven and earth rules. Yesterday's phenomenon was no simple matter. It gave me an indescribable feeling. Shenzhen began to share her thoughts on her painting process. However, Guan caught a special power emerging from the depths of the heaven and earth rules. This power somewhat resembled the inheritance left by Heaven sect. Could it be that Yang Jian's past life was also related to the heavenly Tao represented by Heaven sect? Besides this power, Guan was interested in the reincarnation rules. This painting also attracted the reincarnation rules. Heaven and earth rules are omnipresent, only elusive to mortal spirits. In the eyes of a divine thought true immortal, heaven and earth comprise many layers. Beneath the heaven and earth rules lies even deeper forces of order. After Shenzhen introduced her painting process, she proudly asked, "What do you think? It seems you've sensed my painting intent. Want you comment?" Guan focused on the scroll and replied, "It indeed makes one easily lose their mind. You are very impressive." "That's right." Shenzhen raised her jaw, extremely proud. Just as Guan was about to speak, the scroll suddenly burst into flames, startling Shenzhen as she tried to extinguish it. "Don't approach. This fire is not right," Guan said sternly, stopping Shenzhen from acting rashly. Chapter 331. The Great Emperor from the Silent Destruction Domain. Guan's gaze remained fixed on the burning scroll on the table while his divine sense locked onto outer heaven. Above the great heavenly spirit land hung 7 suns. From within one of those suns, the eyes of a mysterious colossal creature opened and stared directly at Guan's attic. It was this creature that caused the scroll to burn. Guan was not perturbed. The beings in those 7 days all possessed the cultivation level of the carefree primordial immortal, posing no threat to him, but he could feel that they bore great karmic debts and were backed by a mighty presence. Thinking about it, it was normal. After all, if the Holy Court could contain them, either their patron was the Holy Court or their patron was feared by the Holy Court. Regardless of the situation, Guwen did not want to stir trouble unnecessarily. Soon, the scroll on the table turned to ash, yet it miraculously did not affect the table's surface. Xianxia asked, somewhat shaken, "What was that just now?" Even with her divinity transformation realm cultivation level, she could not understand how the flames appeared and vanished. At this moment, she felt as if she had incurred the wrath of the heavens. Guwen took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure, it seems like you shouldn't have painted yesterday's vision." Xianxia frowned and asked, "Only yesterday?" "It seems so, since you've painted other pictures before without such events occurring," Guwen replied. Thinking about it, the karmic debt hidden by Yang Jian seemed to be related to those 7 days. Xianxia took a deep breath and said, "Forget it, my cultivation is too weak, and I certainly cannot provoke them." With her words, Guwen saw the mysterious creature within the sun close its eyes. Xianxia had managed to escape this ordeal. It was merely a warning, indicating that the mysterious beings of the 7 days were not so murderous or domineering. Guwen sat back down and teased, "You're quite something, managing to draw a picture that provokes the wrath of the heavens." Xianxia did not take pride in that but earnestly said, "Indeed, I felt I was capturing an obscure and mysterious state while painting, and each time after I finished painting, it became easier for me to cultivate. Many confusions in cultivation would also become clearer." "It seems you're also about to undergo a profound transformation," Guwen said enviously. Only then did Xianxia smile, snorting, "Be nicer to me from now on. Perhaps I'll become an immortal someday." "All right, Immortal Xin." "Good boy." "How shameless." Daring to offend a future immortal?" The two began to bicker, and the fear in Xianxia's heart was swept away. She felt that she needed to be more cautious about her future paintings. She had to discern clearly what should be painted and what should not. An hour later, Xianxia left. Guwen then lay back in his chair and watched Yang Jian and Heaven's sect. After awakening his past life memories, Yang Jian's cultivation had not experienced substantial transformation, but his whole demeanor indeed had changed. Guwen watched for a while and, confirming that Yang Jian was unharmed, withdrew his gaze. In the days that followed, Yang Jian and Heaven's sect stayed on that island, protected by Heaven's sect's formation. Many great cultivators passed by, unable to detect their existence. Until the summer came. Guwen rode the Blood Prison Great Saint down from the transmission array platform, feeling cheerful. Just as he was about to leave, Nine-Finger Divine Lord approached him curiously and asked, "Guwen, your disciple in Xian has changed significantly lately. What did you teach her?" Because Guwen had previously mentored Yang Jian, he believed Enzin's changes were related to Guwen, which made him more curious about the being behind Guwen. The most mysterious and powerful entity in the Supreme Sect was Sword Venerable Fudao. Nine-Finger Divine Lord had always felt that Guwen was connected to Sword Venerable Fudao. Perhaps Guwen's achievement in Go was related to Sword Venerable Fudao. As for the possibility that Guwen was Sword Venerable Fudao, after learning Guwen's age, he ceased to think in that direction. Unique Taoist sorcery, indescribable and unutterable, unless you become my disciple. Guwen looked down at Nine-Finger Divine Lord and said with a proud smile, causing Nine-Finger Divine Lord to roll his eyes, "You know my cultivation level is quite high, and yet you dare take me as a disciple?" Nine-Finger Divine Lord said with irritation. Guwen shrugged and replied, "The accomplished can be teachers. You surely have aspects where you lag behind me. Could it be that in your life you only pursue cultivation levels? Could it be that in this world only energy absorption can lead to the Tao?" Upon hearing this, Nine-Finger Divine Lord did not counter but fell into thought. Guwen patted the head of the Blood Prison Great Saint, urging him to move forward. The Blood Prison Great Saint had been cultivating the primordial reincarnation skill for years. Though his cultivation level was still sealed, he was hopeful about the future. 1,000 years from now, he would surely become an immortal. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord turned his head and asked, "Can one also achieve the Tao through playing Go?" "Who can say for sure? No matter what you do, as long as you put your heart into it, everything is possible," Guwen replied casually. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord had clearly been seriously injured. His cultivation level was certainly not just that of a wandering immortal, but Guwen was not interested in his past. Watching Guwen's retreating figure, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord sensed a transcendental aura from this young man. He seemed to have seen through the mundane secular world, appearing more like an immortal than actual immortals. Thus, it seemed that Sword Venerable Fudao remained in the Supreme Sect perhaps for this young man? This speculation made Nine-Fingered Divine Lord increasingly convinced. It appeared staying in the Supreme Sect was the right choice. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord looked toward Divine Heart Sun, who was reading under a tree. Previously, he thought Divine Heart Sun was possessed, but now upon seeing him again, he suddenly felt that Divine Heart Sun might also achieve the Tao. Then looking at the third Medicine Valley, he had a strong feeling. In the years to come, this Medicine Valley would spawn many beings who would stir the winds and clouds of the world. This intrigued him, and anticipation bubbled up in his heart. He would wait and see what kind of person Sword Venerable Fudao's chosen land could nurture. Elsewhere, Guwen went upstairs. He closed the door of his room, sat down in the chair, and took the miniature Qingtian peak that had become a piece of ornament at his waist, placing it on the table. Today, he felt a slight anomaly within Qingtian Peak, related to that mysterious heavenly demon. That fellow couldn't restrain himself anymore. Guwen's divine sense probed into Qingtian Peak, which also concealed a realm within it. Although not as extensive as the realms within Divine Exotic City, this realm was broader than the Taizong continent. At that moment, inside a dilapidated temple, Guwen's divine sense avatar walked in. Sunlight pierced through the worn temple walls, elongating Guwen's shadow. Guwen approached a wall crowded with ancient paintings, pitted and aged, their history unknown. "Come out, let's talk. Give me a reason and I want to race you," Guwen stated emotionlessly, his gaze fixed on the wall. As the words fell, wisps of demonic qi seeped from the surface of the dilapidated wall. Even in broad daylight, they appeared haunting and horrifying. Shortly after, a gaunt, black-clad old man crawled out from the demonic qi as if transcending time. His eyes brimming with bloodshot veins, he locked his gaze on Guwen the moment he emerged. Upon standing up, he asked in a deep voice, "Who exactly are you and what do you want?" Guwen answered, "You impact Qingtian Peak toward my mountain, you ask me what I want?" Upon hearing this, the old man's expression grew even grimmer, and he fell silent, his eyes flickering. "Are you here because of the demon fetus?" Guwen asked. Upon hearing this, the old man's face changed drastically, and his body began to tremble. He stared intently at Guwen and asked, "What have you done to him?" "I haven't touched him yet, but the trouble he has caused me seems to be growing." Guwen's tone remained indifferent, making it hard for the old man to gauge his thoughts. The old man hesitated before speaking. "You and us bear no enmity?" Guwen remained silent. Emboldened, the old man continued, "If you do not wish to be entangled in this great karma, it would be wise to leave this place. The demon fetus is a reincarnation of the great emperor from the silent destruction domain, gestated for tens of thousands of years and immovable, with more heavenly demons yet to descend." Guwen pondered internally but asked aloud, "So, you have already established contacts with some of the upper echelons of the Holy Court?" The old man answered, "If you truly don't wish to involve yourself in this karma, it's best not to inquire further. Inquiring more will inevitably alert certain beings." When Guwen put forward this question, it indicated to the old man that Guwen was not connected to the Holy Court, so he did not wish to make an enemy of Guwen. Given Guwen's methods in suppressing Qingtian Peak, he knew he was no match. "What is the purpose of your infiltration into the great heavenly spirit land? It wouldn't be to target the beings of this realm, would it? If so, where could I possibly flee to?" Guwen asked slowly. He was also making a decision, whether to leave Mortal World Peak. Logically, if he wanted to avoid trouble, he should leave. The universe is vast. There are always places to hide. Besides, our plans cannot commence in the short term. the old man replied, sensing Gu En's intention to withdraw. He felt more confident. What was the cultivation level of the demon fetus in his previous life? Gu En inquired. The great emperor in his previous life was an entity of the immortal 8th layer heaven. It won't be difficult for him to reach the immortal 7th layer heaven in this life, the old man replied. Even though the old man was a carefree primordial immortal, to him, reaching the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm was challenging, not to mention higher realms. The immortal 7th layer heaven was already an existence that could traverse the universe in his mind, unless those eternal beings took action. Immortal 8th layer heaven. Gu En's expression turned ugly, but he was slightly relieved internally. The 7th layer was the Tao void mysterious immortal, and the 8th layer was the divine thought true immortal realm where he belonged. He was at the 9th level of divine thought true immortal realm. The old man, thinking Gu En had been frightened, continued, "As long as you leave this place, even if I find the demon fetus, it will take thousands of years to fully form him. You have plenty of time to find a new place for cultivation." Thousands of years? The pressure in Gu En's heart sharply decreased. If it took the old man thousands of years with his help, wouldn't it take tens of thousands of years without him? Gu En spoke, "Allow me a few more years to think. I should have that much time, right?" The old man did not develop hostility toward him, so he wanted to give the old man a chance. Upon hearing this, the old man's expression relaxed considerably, and he raised his hand in salute, saying, "Of course, I hope you can see reason and not delay your future prospects." He could not escape Qingtian Peak, nor could he send out a message. He could only try to maintain good relations with Gu En by blending softness with firmness.